On the ancient battlefield, in a spacious place, Sir God Xuedao with crimson hair in a crimson robe was standing there quietly. There was a cold-looking middle-aged man next to him. Xuedao, when we see them later, what should you say, what should you do, you should know pretty well. There's no need for me to teach you, right? The cold-looking middle-aged man, Emperor God Xuedao said. Don't worry, I have prepared. Sir God Xuedao smiled. The two of them didn't wait for long. Birum, there was a breeze. Then, there was a figure that appeared in front of the two of them. She was taller than 5 meters and her body was curvy. On her beautiful face, there was an indescribable coldness and elegance. She stood there and the universe naturally focused on her. Greetings, Mr. Xuedao greets Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Looking at the incomer, Sir God Xuedao and Emperor God Xuedao immediately bowed and greeted. Color Glazed Emperor, the master of Colored Glaze Sanctuary. One of the great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance, in 6th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked cold. Her pair of eyes, which were cold and without any emotion, looked down. Sir God Xuedao, you should know that I have also been busy searching for opportunities in the ancient battlefield all these years. It is because you are an expert born in Colored Glaze Sanctuary and because you recommended you, that's why I am seeing you now. I hope whatever that you are going to tell me gives you the privilege to see me. Otherwise, Great Emperor Colored Glaze didn't need to finish her sentence. It was already sufficient to make Sir God Xuedao quiver in fear. A great emperor usually doesn't get angry, but when they do, they could easily kill an emperor god. Let alone him, a not-so-famous Sir God, who just broke through not too long ago. Xuedao, tell her everything that you know clearly. Emperor God Xuedao exhorted. Sir God Xuedao took a deep breath and said solemnly, Great Emperor Colored Glaze. First, I have to tell you something. The person who spread the news about this ancient battlefield to eternal chaotic world was I. Ha! Great Emperor Colored Glaze's beautiful eyes froze. Emperor God Xuedao by the side also looked at Sir God Xuedao in shock. He was only in charge of recommending Sir God Xuedao. He didn't know what Sir God Xuedao wanted to tell Great Emperor Colored Glaze. So what if you are the one who spread the news? Great Emperor Colored Glaze's eyes remained cold. If you were to tell me the news at the first instant but not spread it entirely, I would have rewarded you abundantly. However, now, everyone in the world knows about the ancient battlefield, so it doesn't matter who the person who spread the news was. Doesn't matter? No, Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Although I didn't inform you about the ancient battlefield on the first instance, I found you right now naturally because I have absolute confidence in you too. I know where the biggest opportunity in this ancient battlefield lies. Sir God Xuedao said. Biggest opportunity? Great Emperor Colored Glaze's eyes dilated in shock. 90 years had not yet passed since the birth of ancient battlefield. There was a large amount of opportunity that had been found, including the 4 cave dwellings left behind by experts in ancient times. Although the 4 cave dwellings were attractive to her, a great emperor, everyone knew that the cave dwellings weren't the biggest opportunity, even though they were pretty impressive. No one would know of the biggest opportunity if one didn't spend a certain amount of time to find and flip the ancient battlefield upside down to search for it. But then, Sir God Xuedao said that he knew of the biggest opportunity in the ancient battlefield? Tell me then, what is the biggest opportunity? Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked down at Sir God Xuedao. Green Fire World. Sir God Xuedao spat 3 words heavily. Great Emperor Colored Glaze and Emperor God Xuedao were confused. Xuedao, what Green Fire World? Tell me clearly. Emperor God Xuedao said in a deep voice. Sir God Xuedao smiled faintly and started telling her the ins and outs. Green Fire World is a big world. However, it is located at the core location on the ancient battlefield. It was nurtured by the ancient battlefield over the years. In other words, it's just like a child that the ancient battlefield raised, and it is just like a newborn baby. It has boundless possibilities. Its value is far more precious by a few folds than a sanctuary in eternal chaotic world. Actually, forget about a sanctuary. Even if the 10 sanctuaries were added up, they couldn't even be 1/10 of its value. Whoever can conquer Green Fire World, the person will become the #1 overlord in eternal chaotic world over the years. He could even rely on Green Fire World to constantly give birth to experts and build a brand new sanctuary alliance. Whatever Sir God Xuedao said, some he heard from Emperor God Xianxia, some he took some wild guesses. However, whatever he said clarified the unlimited possibility and value that Green Fire World had. Great Emperor Colored Glaze couldn't stay composed any longer after hearing what he had said. Xuedao, are you serious? The ancient battlefield really nurtured a big world? And it really has such great potential. Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked down at him and her eyes were filled with absolute might. Yes, Great Emperor. Green Fire World does exist. There is no doubt about it. As for its actual value, although I made the guess myself, I believe you can evaluate for yourself. The ancient battlefield is amazing. So the big world that the ancient battlefield has nurtured, just how amazing could it be? Most importantly, just how intense is the spiritual influence of heaven and earth in this ancient battlefield, and how amazing is this cultivation environment. Plus, Green Fire World is located right at the core, and its cultivation environment would be the best location in the entire battlefield. If someone were to conquer Green Fire World and the cultivators in Green Fire World had resources and guidance, just how great could Green Fire World be if one were to lead them in their cultivation and growth? These points that I stated, are they not realistic? Sir God Xuedao asked solemnly. Great Emperor Colored Glaze kept quiet. She was a Geet Emperor and there weren't many things that could make her excited and enthusiastic. However, the battlefield was doing it. Then, Green Fire World that Sir God Xuedao was talking about, the big world, if it was really as Sir God Xuedao said, it absolutely had the ability to make her go mad. That's not right. If Green Fire World were to really have that potential and you were the first who found the ancient battlefield in Green Fire World, you could totally conquer it on your own. Why do you want to expose this ancient battlefield to the public and tell me about Green Fire World? Great Emperor Colored Glaze asked coldly. Great Emperor, to be frank with you, I wasn't the first one who found this ancient battlefield. The first one who found it was my senior, Emperor God Xianxia. Sir God Xuedao replied politely. Just as you mentioned, Emperor God Xianxia found out about Green Fire World and he wanted to conquer Green Fire World at the first instant. However, he met a person in Green Fire World. Who? Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked. Sword Emperor, Jian Wushuang. Sword Emperor, Jian Wushuang. Sir God Xuedao looked ferocious when he read the name and there was boundless hatred that filled his eyes. Jian Wushuang. Great Emperor Colored Glaze was surprised. Jian Wushuang is in Green Fire World too? Yes. Sir God Xuedao nodded heavily. Jian Wushuang is widely acknowledged as the #1 expert in Green Fire World, and the entirety of Green Fire World is under his control. My senior, Emperor God Xianxia, didn't know about this but charged in directly. In the end, he died by Jian Wushuang's hand. When I received the news, I knew that I couldn't match Sword Emperor evenly, nor could I take revenge on my senior's behalf. Hence, I spread the news about the ancient battlefield. Originally, I intended to spread the news about Green Fire World altogether so that all experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World would make trouble with Sword Emperor. However, Jian Wushuang would definitely hear rumors ahead of time. By then, due to high pressure, he might hand out Green Fire World proactively. Then, I would lose my chance to take revenge for my senior. Sir God Xuedao clenched his fists. I see. Great Emperor Colored Glaze nodded faintly. So you came to see me personally because you hoped that I'd kill Jian Wushuang for you? Great Emperor judges judiciously. Sir God Xuedao bowed politely to Colored Glaze Great Emperor. Although Jian Wushuang is powerful, he'd definitely die if it was Great Emperor that attacked him personally. By then, Great Emperor could conquer the entire Green Fire World. It's a win-win situation. If Green Fire World has the great potential you describe, even I couldn't conquer it on my own. Sanctuary Alliance would definitely get involved. However, if I could conquer Green Fire World, I would receive a great advantage. Great Emperor Colored Glaze smiled. Sir God Xuedao, I promise you that I will kill Jian Wushuang for you if you lead me to Green Fire World. Thank you, Great Emperor. Sir God Shuedao was filled with excitement. He immediately asked, "Great Emperor, when do we depart? We won't delay any more. We leave this instance." Great Emperor Colored Glaze said in a cold voice. Sir God Shuedao immediately led the way while Great Emperor Colored Glaze and Emperor God Sure You flew to Greenfire World together. The three of them shuttled through the ancient battlefield but didn't stop at all along the way. After some time, the three of them arrived near Greenfire World. "Great Emperor, take a look. This is Greenfire World." Sir God Shuedao pointed at the big world in front. As expected, it is really a complete big world. The closer we get, the more intense the spiritual influence of heaven and earth is. It seems that Greenfire World is really in the core of the ancient battlefield. Great Emperor Colored Glaze stared at Greenfire World in front of her, as joy shimmered in her beautiful eyes. "Sure you stay here with Sir God Shuedao. I'll head over to meet Sword Emperor." Great Emperor Colored Glaze said and immediately flew off. Vroom vroom. When Great Emperor Colored Glaze's original body with divine might appeared at the border of Greenfire World, the higher-ups immediately noticed through the formation. Jian Wushuang recognized the incomer at the first instant. "Great Emperor Colored Glaze? It's her?" Jian Wushuang was surprised. He had once crossed paths with Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Back then, in order to take revenge on Soaring Heaven King Palace, he had barged into Colored Glaze Sanctuary to massacre the experts from Soaring Heaven King Palace and corner them in a desperate situation. In the end, Soaring Heaven King Palace had asked Great Emperor Colored Glaze for assistance. The Great Emperor had made an appearance personally and only spoken one sentence. Jian Wushuang had no choice but to back off. Hence, there was barely a dispute between Jian Wushuang and Great Emperor Colored Glaze. At least, Jian Wushuang didn't quite like Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Great Emperor Colored Glaze descended personally. "It would be impossible if I wanted to hide the existence of Greenfire World." Jian Wushuang knew that clearly. Just then, "Jian Wushuang." The cold voice that contained boundless might suddenly rang from Great Emperor Colored Glaze's mouth and reverberated in the surrounding void. Jian Wushuang, who was in Greenfire World, was shocked. "Great Emperor Colored Glaze knows of my existence?" Jian Wushuang thought. He instantly understood that it was definitely the person who had intentionally spread the news of Greenfire World and himself that informed Great Emperor Colored Glaze. When the news spread, it never brought up me or Greenfire World. But he only informed Great Emperor Colored Glaze alone. The person is worried that I won't take the pressure and abandon Greenfire World. By then, he wouldn't stand a chance to kill me. Jian Wushuang guessed the person's thought instantly. As she already knew of his existence, Jian Wushuang didn't intentionally hide. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang had already leaped out of Greenfire World and come before Great Emperor Colored Glaze. As for the experts from Greenfire World, they stayed back in Greenfire World. A Great Emperor had descended personally. The cultivators from Greenfire World weren't capable enough to deal with it. "It's really you." Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked at Jian Wushuang and she looked surprised. She was in doubt of what Sir God Shuedao had said earlier. But then when she saw Jian Wushuang, her suspicion vanished. "It seems like the person was right. Your Greenfire World is really unusual. Otherwise, it would be absolutely impossible to nurture such a top monster." Great Emperor Colored Glaze said coldly. "Great Emperor Colored Glaze, as you already know of Greenfire World and you also know of my existence, then we shouldn't beat around the bush. Tell me, what do you want?" Jian Wushuang's face was cold. Then, he was totally different from when he had been on Soaring Heaven Land. Back then, when he had been dealing with Great Emperor Colored Glaze, she had only been a consciousness incarnation. However, he had no choice but to lower his head. But then, although Great Emperor Colored Glaze had come personally, he wasn't fearful of her at all. "Very simple. Let me see your Greenfire World," Great Emperor Colored Glaze said. Then, Jian Wushuang asked in a deep voice, "If there's nothing unique about Greenfire World, I naturally will leave immediately. If it is just like how the person mentioned, I will stay back in Greenfire World for a while." Great Emperor Colored Glaze smiled. Although she had put it in an indirect way, Jian Wushuang knew the meaning behind it clearly. What if I don't agree? Jian Wushuang said. Don't agree. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's voice was cold. If you don't agree, I will attack directly and conquer Green Fire World. Whoever doesn't yield to me, I'll kill all of them. As for you, Jian Wushuang, I know that there's a mysterious expert, Emperor 13, behind you. Because of him, I will not kill you, but it's good enough as long as I trap you in or suppress you. Then, if Emperor 13 surfaces, I shall pass you back to him. To conquer a sanctuary and become an overlord in eternal chaotic world. Great Emperor Colored Glaze wasn't stupid. Plus, she was pretty well informed. The war that had happened in Lineage of Star, she knew about it and she had naturally heard of the mysterious expert from ancient times, Emperor 13. He was a super expert and he was definitely related to Jian Wushuang. He absolutely wouldn't allow Jian Wushuang to die. Back then, Abysmal Saint Master had wanted to kill Jian Wushuang. In the end, Emperor 13 had popped up from nowhere. With one stroke, he had almost killed Abysmal Saint Master. His terrifying power was only stronger, not weaker than Emperor Bai's. She wasn't even as strong as Abysmal Saint Master. Hence, she didn't have the courage to kill Jian Wushuang. As for what she had promised Sir God Xuedao, she merely wanted Sir God Xuedao wanted to lead her to Green Fire World. She had never thought of killing Jian Wushuang. However, as long as she didn't kill, merely trapped or suppressed, she believed that Emperor 13 wouldn't find trouble with her. Jian Wushuang, do you want me to attack, or do you want to make the choice on your own? Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked at Jian Wushuang coldly. Jian Wushuang wasn't angry but smiled. Colored Glaze, you're an old woman that has lived for God knows how many years. Aren't you too arrogant? What did you say? Great Emperor Colored Glaze's face grew grave. Old woman? Jian Wushuang had said that she was an old woman and said that she was arrogant. That was right. She had lived for many years and she was considered an old monster. However, she was a great emperor. Even the few great emperors on the same level as her didn't dare to call her an old woman. Who the hell did Jian Wushuang think he was? Why? You didn't hear that clearly? Do you want me to repeat it? Jian Wushuang scoffed. I said you, an old woman, are too arrogant. I respected you and called you Great Emperor Colored Glaze. If I don't, who the hell are you? Green Fire World is not a place for people of such a low standard as yourself. If you are wise, hurry up and leave. Otherwise, Jian Wushuang's face turned ice cold. He didn't want to act courteously with Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Courting death. Great Emperor Colored Glaze raged with anger. A great emperor, a high and mighty existence in eternal chaotic world. How dare one offend her? On top of that, not only had Jian Wushuang offended her, he had challenged and even humiliated her. Great Emperor Colored Glaze couldn't hold her anger back. Rumble. Boundless divine might soared from Great Emperor Colored Glaze and filled the universe. Under such great divine might, even the void was quivering in madness as though it was shivering in fear. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's eyes were cold and her face was covered in frost. Her divine might spread and chilliness instantly covered the universe. Walala! Large chunks of void were frozen entirely. Around Great Emperor Colored Glaze, the surrounding void of hundreds of thousands of miles froze. Jian Wushuang was the first to dash forward. The shocking chilliness was almost freezing him to death. Jian Wushuang, don't think that there's a mysterious expert behind your back and I can't do anything about you. Even though I can't kill you, I can teach you a lesson at least. That's something I can still do. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's cold voice reverberated in the universe. At the same time, her jade finger extended slowly. Pest, pest, pest. The cold ice in the air suddenly stirred and instantly formed 3 cones. The 3 ice cones weren't huge but contained a chilliness. It was enough to shock any emperor god. Die! Great Emperor Colored Glazes will moved. The 3 ice cones charged at Jian Wushuang at lightning speed. Jian Wushuang stood in the void and felt the surrounding spacetime freeze. Even his divine body felt enormous pressure. It was extremely difficult when it came to movement. It would be unrealistic if he wanted to resist the 3 ice cones. Plus, even if he really did block them, The power of a great emperor wasn't something he could match with evenly. However, there was no need for him to take action. Right when Great Emperor colored glaze, there was a flowing light that had plunged out from green fire world behind him. Wow! As the crimson cloud churned, Jian Yi appeared before Jian Wushuang. Dealing with the 3 ice cones that burst out, Jian Yi slowly raised his hand. Without too much of a movement, he merely snapped his fingers in the direction that the 3 ice cones were flying from. Pack, pack, pack. The 3 ice cones burst out simultaneously and filled the air with shattered ice pieces. The attack of Great Emperor colored glaze collapsed. At the same time, there was a crimson cloud that swept out from Jian Yi's body, just like a crimson ocean that surged to the surroundings. Jian Wushuang was engulfed in a crimson ocean, and his movement resumed normal without any restriction. Jian Yi, well done. Jian Wushuang looked at Jian Yi with a satisfied gaze. Thank you, master, for your compliment. Jian Yi smiled and nodded. There was unprecedented enthusiasm in his eyes. Looking at the sight, Great Emperor colored glaze in the nearby void looked shocked. Great Emperor? Great Emperor colored glaze looked at Jian Yi with a cold gaze. She could feel that Jian Yi had divine power and an aura that wasn't much weaker than hers. Besides, Jian Yi had attacked and instantly shattered her attack. Judging from the way he broke her frozen spacetime, Jian Yi was a true Great Emperor expert. In terms of power, he might not even be weaker than her. How could it be? There are only so many great emperors in eternal chaotic world. Previously, there was Emperor 13 out of nowhere. Now, there was another one. Similarly, there was no sign at all. Great Emperor colored glaze creased her eyebrows. She didn't know that Jian Yi was like Emperor 13. They were all experts from ancient times. And they were both from the nearby ancient battlefield. Only Emperor 13 was more mysterious, and he wasn't under Jian Wushuang's control. However, Jian Yi had been soul-controlled by him long ago. Soul-controlled, Jian Yi naturally obeyed his command. Previously, Jian Yi had been severely injured and he had never recovered his power. Back during the war in Lineage of Star, Jian Yi had only recovered to peak middle-stage chaotic realm, but his fighting power was extremely close to Great Emperor. However, compared to Great Emperor, he was slightly weaker. However, ever since Jian Wushuang had returned to Greenfire World, Jian Yi had continued to recover his power in seclusion. With the aid of Greenfire World's current increasing spiritual influence of heaven and earth, his power was recovering at a terrifying rate. 12,000 years had passed and the current Jian Yi had yet to recover entirely and resumed the strongest status. However, he had already reached peak chaotic realm. Peak chaotic realm equaled Great Emperor level in eternal chaotic world. Humph, no wonder you dared to fight against me. It turns out that besides Emperor 13, you have another Great Emperor expert with you. Great Emperor colored glaze was cold. However, even though he was a Great Emperor, there is a difference in power. With him alone, can he hold me back? Great Emperor colored glaze had terrifying chilliness and it soared up again. Walala! Everything in the universe seemed to freeze. There was suddenly a green spear in Great Emperor colored glaze. The spear was 3 meters long and gave out a cold aura. Great Emperor colored glaze moved and was already in action. Hong! There was suddenly a huge ice hole in the spacetime. Then the cracks extended. From the huge ice holes, roar! There was a terrifying roar and a primeval beast substantiated from the ice. Along with billowing power, the primeval beast was already before Jian Yi. Jian Yi looked cold as he was engulfed in the core of the Crimson Ocean, just like a blood god. He stole a glance at the primeval beast and he immediately pointed. He pointed and heaven and earth became quiet. The primeval beast that was substantiated from ice suddenly had a hole in its chest. There was boundless divine power and it instantly shattered the primeval beast into pieces. The primeval beast just broke apart and there was a tall, cold figure that broke the air. Great Emperor colored glaze carried no emotions and the gloomy spear in her hands burst out mercilessly. Swoosh! 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 It burst out continuously for a total of 9 times. Every time it burst out, there was a brilliant white light in the void. The The speed couldn't be described even with thunder or lightning. Most importantly, the 9 bursts sealed the space-time and locked Jianyi so he had no chance to dodge. Humph! Jianyi's face grew dim, but both his hands moved. Blood demon hand. Bang! 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 There were continuous crimson palm prints that appeared. Similarly, he did it 9 times. With every clap, the crimson palm print would turn into a huge mountain. The huge mountain had a churning crimson cloud, just like a volcano. Great Emperor-colored glaze stabbed with her long spear, and there was boundless chilliness. The volcano and ice finally collided. Hong! There was a ferocious bang. The entire universe was covered in boundless ice and crimson cloud. It became glorious scenery. Jian Wushuang stood in the nearby void and could clearly feel the clashing of 2 bolts of power. There was a spark in his eyes at the sight. A great emperor's power was much stronger than an emperor god's. In terms of power, it wasn't comparable. Just then, swoosh, there was a figure that burst out of the core of the battlefield. It was Jianyi. As for great emperor-colored glaze, she was still standing at the core in the universe. The shocking chilliness filled more than half of the universe. It was obvious that great emperor-colored glaze had the upper hand in the fight. Humph! Merely the level of a great emperor, and you want to stop me with such a standard of fighting power? Great emperor-colored glaze roared coldly. Then Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock. Jianyi had only recovered to peak chaotic realm, but had yet to reach his most powerful status. In terms of power and strength, he was weaker than Great Emperor-colored glaze in the 6th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. However, Jianyi was an expert from ancient times after all. He had many skills. As expected, after Jianyi was defeated by Great Emperor-colored glaze, his figure suddenly became ghostly. Then, there were crimson shadows that suddenly appeared from nowhere. The densely dotted crimson shadows clustered in the surrounding void. With naked eyes or even with soul power, no one could determine which one among the crimson shadows was Jianyi's original body. Until Jianyi attacked. Wow! There was a palm that appeared behind Great Emperor-colored glaze silently. The palm extended its finger and the tip of the finger was covered from crimson light as it pointed at Great Emperor-colored glaze's head. Behind Great Emperor-colored glaze, there were ice cones that were 2 meters long that appeared from nowhere. There were a total of 12 cones that flew out at the same time. The ice cones were extremely fast and he wasn't affected. It pierced Jianyi's body but didn't touch his original body at all. Swoosh! Jianyi's body was ghostly and he appeared next to Great Emperor-colored glaze again. This person is so fast? The manipulation method of his space-time power is impressive too. Great Emperor-colored glaze creased her eyebrows. But suddenly, Great Emperor-colored glaze's 5 meters tall body extended 2 heads and 4 arms. In addition to Great Emperor-colored glaze's own head and arms, 3 heads and 6 arms. It also contained a unique power superposition method. Both heads and arms could flawlessly collaborate. Her 6 arms held the cold spear and stabbed Jianyi mercilessly. Besides, on her 3 heads, one of her eyes was shimmering in a strange light which was captivating. The second head roared with her mouth open and her roar shook the space-time. The last head had the third eye opened in between her eyebrows. Then, there was a resplendent light that contained boundless destroying aura that burst out at Jianyi. Jianyi creased his eyebrows. He was forced to retreat once again by Great Emperor-colored glaze's skills. His speed and his manipulation of power of spacetime were far ahead of Great Emperor-colored glaze's. With his speed and manipulation of power of spacetime, Great Emperor-colored glaze performed 3 heads and 6 arms and also many other skills during their fierce battle but couldn't do anything about Jianyi. Both parties were matched evenly and Great Emperor-colored glaze barely had the upper hand. Great Emperor-colored glaze lives up to being in 6th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. She is very powerful and she has many skills hidden up her sleeve, Jian Wushuang muttered. It's a pity that Jianyi's power only recovered to peak middle stage chaotic realm not too long ago, and he is still a little far off his prosperous peak. Otherwise, however Jianyi could fight with Great Emperor-colored glaze to this state, it was already good enough. On the battlefield, Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked extremely cold. This person's manipulation of power of spacetime is so strange. Luckily, he isn't as powerful as I am, otherwise, I'm afraid I might not be his match. Great Emperor Colored Glaze knew her limitations. When she had been fighting with Jian Yi, Great Emperor Colored Glaze had constantly looked at Jian Wushuang. However, I can do nothing about this person. There's no point in continuing to fight with him. He obviously is only listening to Jian Wushuang's command. As long as I capture Jian Wushuang, I can control him. Once Great Emperor Colored Glaze understood that, she made up her mind. Go away! Great Emperor Colored Glaze bellowed, and the chilliness in her body flowed out. The boundless chilliness substantiated before her and formed 3 ice dragons. Every single one of the 3 ice dragons was 10,000 miles in length, and they gave out billowing auras. Any one of them could easily kill an Emperor God. Then, as Great Emperor Colored Glaze controlled the 3 ice dragons, they let out a bellow and instantly plunged at Jian Yi. Dealing with 3 ice dragons, Jian Yi didn't act recklessly but launched a full hit to match him evenly. However, just as he prepared to deal with the 3 ice dragons, Great Emperor Colored Glaze took a huge step back. Then, she turned to charge at Jian Wushuang. A terrifying chilliness and cold aura instantly covered Jian Wushuang. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's eyes, which were fixed upon Jian Wushuang, turned cold too. Looking at Great Emperor Colored Glaze charging at him, Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock, but he didn't panic. He flipped his hand, and there was a bronze mirror that let out an ancient aura in his hand. The 5-Fire Godly Spirit Mirror. He had just gotten the 5-Fire Godly Spirit Mirror not too long ago, and it was his first time displaying its power outside. Rumble. Boundless divine power flowed into the bronze mirror, and the 5 godly spirits in the bronze mirror were woken up by Jian Wushuang. Then they plunged out. Tall, dark shadows substantiated in the void. There was a total of 5. Plus, all the 5 dark shadows were huge, and every single one was more than 5 meters tall. They gave out chilly aura as though they were from Acheron. 5 godly spirits. Stop her. At Jian Wushuang's command, the 5 dark shadows lifted their heads at the same time. In their eye sockets there weren't eyeballs. There was only dancing ghostly fire. That very moment, the ghostly fire was churning, and it seemed rather impatient. Hong! 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 The 5 godly spirits moved simultaneously. In the first instance, they formed a 5-fire formation. Once they appeared before Great Emperor Colored Glaze, the power of the 5 godly spirits and 5-fire formation exploded. After a loud bang, the 5 godly spirits took a step back at the same time. However, Great Emperor Colored Glaze was stopped. What's that? Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked at the 5 godly spirits that had appeared in front of her in shock. She could tell that the 5 godly spirits weren't war puppets, nor were they real. They should have existed in a unique way. Plus, the fighting power of each godly spirit wasn't too strong, and they should be a distance from a great emperor. However, when the 5 godly spirits joined forces with the aid of the formation, the pressure that they brought to her was not weaker than an ordinary great emperor's. In terms of power and strength, they might even be stronger than Jian Yi had been previously. Jian Wushuang has such powerful treasure? Great Emperor Colored Glaze couldn't help but steal a glance at the bronze mirror in Jian Wushuang's hand. She knew that the 5 godly spirits had popped out from the bronze mirror. The 5 godly spirits had joined forces and possessed the fighting power of a great emperor. Die! The 5 godly spirits were raging with anger. They were refined into spirits via brutal methods. All their lives, they wouldn't be able to shake it off. To them, it was absolutely more painful than death. Over the years, they had naturally accumulated boundless hatred and cruelty. The hatred was taken out on their opponents. The 5 godly spirits formed 5-fire formation and fought with Great Emperor Colored Glaze. At the same time, Jian Yi had already taken care of the 3 ice dragons, and he was charging at Great Emperor Colored Glaze. When they joined forces, it equaled the fighting power of 2 great emperors. Although Great Emperor Colored Glaze was on the 6th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, she was considered the stronger one among great emperors. However, She wasn't capable enough to fight two great emperors at the same time. Plus, Jian and the 5 godly spirits displayed fighting power that wasn't weak. In a short while, Great Emperor Colored Glaze was already suppressed. Damn it! Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked cold as there was fire burning in her eyes. However, no matter how angry she was, fighting power was on display. She was really not capable enough to match evenly with Jian and the 5 godly spirits. Even under Jian and the 5 godly spirits' pressure, she wanted to find a chance to attack Jian Wushuang, but she had failed to do so. Colored Glaze, do you want to continue to fight? Jian Wushuang stood in the void nearby as he humphed coldly. Bastard! Great Emperor Colored Glaze was angry, but she couldn't do anything to Jian Wushuang. Humph! You're so stubborn. You really think that I can't make you, a great emperor, stay? Jian Wushuang's voice became cold. Don't forget that my sword servant and I cultivated the secret skill of Star Palace. Secret skill of Star Palace? Great Emperor Colored Glaze stunned. She naturally knew about the secret skill of Star Palace. She also knew that Jian Wushuang had cultivated the 3rd volume of Secret Skill of Star Palace successfully. Back then, with that one move, he had wiped out almost 100 Almighties from Almighty's alliance with one hit. His power had already reached the extreme limit of a great emperor. In Eternal Chaotic World, besides Emperor Bai and the mysterious Emperor 13, they reckoned no one could perform such an attack. Now, she was against Jian and 5 godly spirits. She was already suppressed entirely. By then, if Jian Wushuang were to attack again, attack at that level, her life might be threatened even though she was a great emperor. I will count to 3. If you don't retreat, I'll immediately launch my killer hit. Don't think I'm joking. Jian Wushuang's voice was low. 1, 2. Jian Wushuang had yet to count to 3. Great Emperor Colored Glaze, who was fighting with Jian and 5 godly spirits ferociously, suddenly retreated. As she retreated, her cold voice resounded in the universe. Jian Wushuang, I am defeated, but don't be too happy just yet. You think you'll be able to protect Green Fire World on your own? You are dreaming. Just you wait. In no time I will return. Her voice continued to reverberate. Then, Great Emperor Colored Glaze's body disappeared at the end of the sky. In the void in front of Green Fire World, Jian Wushuang stood. His face grew grave when he heard what Great Emperor Colored Glaze said. He hadn't lied earlier. If he were to perform his trump card without scruples, he was confident that he could make Great Emperor Colored Glaze stay forever. However, there was no use if she stayed. The secret of Green Fire World would be exposed. Even if he killed Great Emperor Colored Glaze, then there would be other Great Emperor or experts who would come. He might as well save the final trump card to deal with the upcoming danger. Plus, a Great Emperor expert was associated with many. Anyone's pass would stir a great commotion and inflict a great outcome. Although I forced Great Emperor Colored Glaze to back off for now, in no time, Great Emperor Colored Glaze will definitely bring other experts along again. She might even lead all the experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World over. Jian Wushuang's face grew grave. Green Fire World. Its value was really unbelievable. When Emperor Xianxia had first discovered Green Fire World and only find out briefly about Green Fire World, he determined that Green Fire World had the potential to become another powerful sanctuary. But in actual fact, the potential of Green Fire World was far beyond what Emperor Xianxia and Sir God Shuedao had imagined. Such a place even Sanctuary Alliance would care about. Forget about the experts from various forces. As for Jian Wushuang, he naturally wanted to protect Green Fire World alone and not let various forces in Sanctuary Alliance carve it up. Hence, he was destined to go against the entire Eternal Chaotic World. Regardless, Green Fire World is my hometown. It is my root. As long as I am alive, I will not allow anyone to take a share of it. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands tightly, and he had already made up his mind. In the void near Green Fire World, swoosh, Great Emperor Colored Glaze's figure appeared again. At that very moment, there was coldness on her enchanting face, and she didn't look good at all. Next to Great Emperor Colored Glaze, Emperor God Shi Yu and Sir God Shuedao stood politely. The two of you, Keep watch of Green Fire World from today onwards. Watch their every movement. Great Emperor Colored Glaze commanded. Yes. Emperor God Sure Yu and Sir God Shui Dao nodded. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's figure turned illusionary and vanished into thin air. Emperor God Sure Yu looked calm at the sight, but Sir God Shui Dao looked curious. I never expected that Great Emperor God Colored Glaze wouldn't do anything to Jian Wushuang when she attacked personally. She was forced to retreat. Sir God Shui Dao was surprised. He knew Jian Wushuang's reputation, and he also knew of Jian Wushuang's battle achievement. However, these battle achievements weren't enough to fight with a great emperor. But then, Great Emperor Colored Glaze left. She had definitely wanted to invite other great emperor experts to attack together. However, even if a few great emperors joined forces, I'm afraid they could only force Jian Wushuang to hand out Green Fire World. As for killing Jian Wushuang, I reckon there is no one who dares to do so, Sir God Shui Dao thought. In the beginning, he had really thought Great Emperor Colored Glaze would kill Jian Wushuang to take revenge on his behalf. However, he understood from the conversation between Great Emperor Colored Glaze and Jian Wushuang that Great Emperor Colored Glaze had scruples with the mysterious expert behind Jian Wushuang, Emperor 13. She didn't have the guts to kill Jian Wushuang for real, even though Jian Wushuang had humiliated her on the spot. He had called her an old woman and told her to leave, but Great Emperor Colored Glaze had only wanted to teach him a lesson. In other words, Great Emperor Colored Glaze had only pretended to promise him from the very beginning. As Great Emperor Colored Glaze had scruples with Emperor 13, the other great emperors that she invited should be the same as well. To kill Jian Wushuang for real, Great Emperor Colored Glaze and the emperor gods that she was going to invite wouldn't do. It seems that there is only one final move to take if I really want Sword Emperor to be killed for senior. Sir God Shui Dao's thought coldly. He didn't react much, so Emperor God Sure Yu by his side couldn't see anything different in him. In the vast void on ancient battlefield, Great Emperor Colored Glaze floated in silence. Soon, a dark figure plunged over. The dark figure belonged to Abysmal Saint Master. Colored Glaze, what's the hurry? Abysmal Saint Master appeared before Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Abysmal Saint Master rushed to the ancient battlefield at the first instant. During the 90 years of wandering in the ancient battlefield, he had really obtained some opportunities but not many. At that moment, he had yet to receive any opportunity that would allow him to improve his power tremendously. His power had yet to recover to his peak by then. I look for you, naturally there's a good deal. Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked at Abysmal Saint Master and immediately briefly told him about Green Fire World. Great Emperor Colored Glaze said, and Abysmal Saint Master's gaze became sharp. The ancient battlefield nurtured a big world? Abysmal Saint Master was astonished. Green Fire World does exist, but it's a pity that Jian Wushuang is there. I originally wanted to attack and conquer Green Fire World, but in the end, I was forced to retreat. I have no choice but to look for you, Great Emperor Colored Glaze explained. Jian Wushuang? Why is this boy everywhere? Abysmal Saint Master's gaze was cold. To Jian Wushuang, he harbored murderous intention. If I'm not mistaken, Green Fire World should be Jian Wushuang's hometown, where his roots are. The reason why his cultivation speed is so shocking and why he is so talented, it should be related to Green Fire World, Great Emperor Colored Glaze said. That's right. Jian Wushuang is too eye-catching. I reckon he is much more brilliant than Emperor Bai was back then. Such top genius would be considered unbelievable in the first era, let alone the second era. I think only Green Fire World could nurture such impressive genius. This boy is lucky that he could be born in such a place. Abysmal Saint Master clenched his hand and turned to Great Emperor Colored Glaze by his side. Colored Glaze, you came to look for me to join forces with me to fight Jian Wushuang, right? Yes. Great Emperor Colored Glaze nodded. Jian Wushuang is Green Fire World's biggest reliance. If we want to conquer Green Fire World, we have to get rid of Jian Wushuang first. According to what you said, there was a great emperor with Jian Wushuang, and he has a treasure that could control 5 dark shadows that possess the fighting power of a great emperor if forces join. On top of that, he himself has trump cards to hand. With such fighting power, even if I were to work together with you during my peak time, we might not stand a chance, Abysmal Saint Master said. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's gaze grew dim. That was true. Although Abysmal Saint Master and her were both powerful great emperors, Abysmal Saint Master had yet to recover from his injury completely. With the two of them joining forces, they could at most be evenly matched with Jian Wushuang. Even though they had the upper hand, it wasn't enough. How about this? Let's wait for a while. Let me ask another person, Abysmal Saint Master said. All right. Great Emperor Colored Glaze nodded. Abysmal Saint Master immediately sent a message. The two great emperors waited in the void for a while. Very soon, the third great emperor joined them. With purple robes, a lazy look and a middle-aged appearance, he looked rather gentle. The purple-robed lazy middle-aged man was Great Emperor Zisu in 5th place on Heaven and Earth's Supreme Ranking list. Zisu, it's really you? Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked at Great Emperor Zisu in shock. From what she knew, Great Emperor Z, you had always been taking an indifferent attitude in fighting for fame and fortune. Like ranking on Heaven and Earth's Supreme Ranking list, regardless of if he was on the 5th place or the last place, he didn't care. He hardly fought and he didn't care much about Sanctuary Alliance. He could be said to be a great emperor who was aloof. However, Great Emperor Zisu rushed over. I never expected Great Emperor Zisu, who is widely acknowledged as aloof, would be interested in Greenfire World as well, Great Emperor Colored Glaze sneered. A big world that is nurtured by the ancient battlefield. It's not strange that I am interested in it, Great Emperor Zisu smiled. Humph, don't think that I don't know that you are not interested in Greenfire World but Jian Wushuang. Abysmal Saint Master looked at Great Emperor Zisu and there was a strange look. Regardless of if I am interested in Greenfire World or Jian Wushuang, as long as our goal is the same, it will work, right? Great Emperor Zisu smiled. That's right. Greenfire World is very unusual. How could Jian Wushuang conquer such a world with boundless possibilities alone? The three of us might as well conquer Greenfire World first. Then, when the others discover the world, we can discuss then. As long as the three of us take hold of Greenfire World first, the three of us will definitely receive the most benefits. Great Emperor Colored Glaze said. That's right. So, let's not delay any further. Let's depart now, Abysmal Saint Master said. Great Emperor Zisu smiled faintly. The three Great Emperor immediately departed. However, it was not long after the three Great Emperors departed. They still had a fair distance to reach Greenfire World. A piece of news was spreading among experts in Eternal Chaotic World like wildfire. The news was about Greenfire World's existence. Greenfire World, that was nurtured by the ancient battlefield and had great potential. At the same time, it was also the biggest treasure in the entire ancient battlefield. The moment the news spread, the three Great Emperors who were on the way to Greenfire World found out immediately. Damn it! The news about Greenfire World has already spread. Abysmal Saint Master's face grew grave, and he reprimanded Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Colored Glaze, what's going on? I thought only you knew about Greenfire World. I never said that I was the first who found Greenfire World, Great Emperor Colored Glaze refuted coldly. The first who found out was Emperor God Xianxia, and he was killed by Jian Wushuang long ago. As for the news, it was given to me by a Sir God from Colored Glaze Sanctuary who just broke through not long ago. He was Emperor God Xianxia's junior. He told me about Greenfire World, and the condition was for me to kill Jian Wushuang on his behalf. I agreed with him on the surface. But now he has found out that I can't kill Jian Wushuang. Hence, he naturally has to figure out other ways. It is normal that he would spread the news. You knew that he would announce the news to the public. Why didn't you kill him directly? Abysmal Saint Master asked coldly. Abysmal? Do you think I am as despicable as you? Great Emperor Colored Glaze teased. Plus, I can guarantee that he didn't keep his guard up. If he were to inform the others long ago and hide, so what? The news would spread even sooner if I were to kill him. Although the news spread, at least we have the upper hand. Colored Glaze is right. Zisu by the side spoke too. The big world on the ancient battlefield would be found sooner or later. There's no way to hide it. However, compared to the others, the three of us have gotten a head start. It's good enough. Abysmal Saint Master heard but didn't speak further. The three of them immediately sped up and rushed to Greenfire World. Then, in Eternal Chaotic World and on the ancient battlefield, there was a great commotion. A big world? The ancient battlefield nurtured a big world. The big world is located right at the core of the ancient battlefield. The spiritual influence of heaven and earth was the strongest there. If we were to be able to cultivate there is limitless possibilities. Greenfire World really carries limitless possibilities. Go, hurry up and go. A big world that is nurtured by the ancient battlefield. I wonder how it looks internally. Countless experts were shaken by the news and made their way to Greenfire World. Not only experts from human territories but also experts of special tribes all rushed to Greenfire World at the first instant when they heard the news. Greenfire World was everyone's focus. It was everyone's focus. However, when Sir God Shuedao spread the news, he brought up Greenfire World but he not Jian Wushuang. He knew that if the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance were to find out that Greenfire World was controlled by Jian Wushuang, the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance would definitely find a way to message Jian Wushuang for him to hand out Greenfire World proactively. Regardless of the threats or temptations, Jian Wushuang might be forced to give in if he had no alternative. However, as long as Jian Wushuang had a string of hope and didn't hand over Greenfire World, experts from various forces would charge there altogether. Jian Wushuang might not have the time to regret then. In Greenfire World, although Jian Wushuang was in his secret room, the movement in Eternal Chaotic World and the ancient battlefield, he received detailed information from Lineage of Star. It is widespread now? Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, but he wasn't surprised. He knew that as long as the ancient battlefield was found out, it would be impossible to hide Greenfire World. Then, all experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World were shaken by the news and they were on their way to Greenfire World. Greenfire World was enduring unprecedented pressure. Until now, the higher-ups in Sanctuary Alliance had yet to get in touch with me. It seems that the person who spread the news only spoke of Greenfire World but never mentioned me. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. The surrounding battlefield, the opportunities contained on the battlefield, take them if you want. However, Greenfire World is my root. No one should even think about touching it. That's my bottom line. I hope that you don't force me to then. Otherwise, I can only make that move. There was an intense light shimmering in Jian Wushuang's eyes. In Greenfire World, besides himself, there was another trump card. That was the strongest trump card, the final trump card. Jian Wushuang definitely wouldn't use the trump card unless he reached the final stage. If Jian Wushuang were to be cornered, he absolutely wouldn't hesitate to use it. At the worst, they'd fight at the risk of mutual destruction. Just as all experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World were shaken by the news about Greenfire World. On the ancient battlefield, in an underground ruin not too far away from Greenfire World. In the underground ruin there was an underground palace. The underground palace was huge and the interior was mysterious and unfathomable. An elder in a gold robe shuttled through the underground palace. The elder was an ordinary Sir God from Emperor Sword Sect. He had found the existence of underground palace by sheer luck. After he found it, he had immediately started to explore to find the opportunities within. However, over the path, he didn't see any opportunity at all until he reached the depths of the underground palace. Ha! The elder in the gold robe was surprised. He saw that there was a figure seated on the empty land in front of him. No wonder there isn't an opportunity. It turns out that someone found the underground palace before I did. The elder in the gold robe glanced at the figure on the empty land with envy in his eyes. There were opportunities on the ancient battleground. But as there were more people started to wander around, it was normal that many of the opportunities were taken. The elder in the gold robe flashed a bitter smile, then he turned to leave. But suddenly, the figure that was seated on the empty land suddenly opened her eyes. Her pair of eyes were extremely brilliant, just like gemstones. At the same time, she slowly stood up. Her face was beautiful and her body was enchanting. She was in a tight red robe which appeared to be extremely captivating. No doubt, She was a beautiful woman by which any man would be captivated and tempted. However, as the enchanting woman in the red robe stood up, there was a terrifying aura. The terrifying aura covered the elder in the gold robe. The elder in the gold robe was a Sir God. However, under such an aura, he revealed an unprecedentedly horrified expression, and he was shivering in fear. The elder in the gold robe took a deep breath and he bowed politely. I am Jian Luo from Emperor Sword Sect. Emperor Sword Sect? The enchanting woman in the red robe was surprised, but she never spoke. However, she took a huge stride as she walked to the elder in the gold robe. As she walked over, the brilliance in the enchanting woman's eyes became stronger. I'll ask you some questions. Answer me honestly. The enchanting woman in the red robe finally walked next to the elder in the gold robe. Yes. The elder in the gold robe had an absent look. No one could tell if he was in phantasmagoria or in a special state. In a short while, the enchanting woman in the red robe found out about things that she'd like to know from the elder in the gold robe. The ancient battlefield was found by the cultivators from this era? The enchanting woman in the red robe squinted her eyes. As the ancient battlefield is found, Green Fire World was definitely found as well. I wonder how Jian Wushuang is going to deal with it. With a playful smile, the enchanting woman in the red robe moved and flew towards Green Fire World. Not long after she had left, the elder in the gold robe came back to reality. What happened? What happened to me earlier? Where's the Mr. just now? The elder in the gold robe looked lost, and he had no idea what had happened earlier. Outside Green Fire World, Great Emperor Colored Glaze, Abysmal Saint Master, and Great Emperor Zisu, the three great emperors had arrived. Looking at the big world in front of them, Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Zisu couldn't help but sigh. Jian Wushuang in Green Fire World had naturally noticed the three great emperors. Swoosh! Swoosh! There were two loud air-piercing sounds. Jian Wushuang and Jian Yi came out from Green Fire World and came before the three great emperors. Jian Wushuang, I said earlier that I would return in no time. Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked cold as she glared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang only glanced at Great Emperor Colored Glaze but didn't bother talking to her at all. As for Abysmal Saint Master, he had originally shared great resentment with Abysmal Saint Master. During the war in Lineage of Star back then, Abysmal Saint Master had been determined to kill him. Fortunately, Emperor 13 had taken action. Otherwise, most likely, he would have died back then. It was normal that Abysmal Saint Master came to look for him again. Then Jian Wushuang's gaze was fixed upon the last great emperor, Great Emperor Zisu. He also knew that Great Emperor Colored Glaze would get some help. It was within his expectations that he would invite one or two other great emperors, but he had never guessed that she would invite Great Emperor Zisu. Jian Wushuang knew about Great Emperor Zisu. He was a cold man. As long as the others didn't find trouble in him, he hardly took action against anyone. He was considered mild-tempered. Although he had never met Great Emperor Zisu before, they were connected. Back then, Jian Wushuang wanted to carry out his promise with real God Wu Bei and kill King Demon Heart. King Demon Heart had once sent a message to Great Emperor Zisu to ask for help. But then, Great Emperor Zisu hadn't appeared or stopped Jian Wushuang. Could be considered a favor to Jian Wushuang. But then, Great Emperor Zisu, can you do me a favor again? I would be extremely grateful, Jian Wushuang said. Sword Emperor, I'm sorry. Green Fire World has associated greatly with everything else. So, Great Emperor Zisu had yet to finish his sentence. Jian Wushuang, don't have any unrealistic thoughts. I advise you to hand over Green Fire World directly. Then we won't attack, Abysmal Saint Master said coldly. Jian Wushuang stole a glance at Abysmal Saint Master, then scoffed. I thought, who was it? It is Abysmal Saint Master. Why? Have you recovered completely? Abysmal Saint Master's face stunned. 12,000 years ago, in the war in Lineage of Star, he had been at the brink of death because of Emperor 13. The reason why Emperor 13 hadn't killed him was merely that he wasn't powerful enough to. That was absolutely humiliating to Abysmal Saint Master. Humph, you were nearly killed by Emperor 13 back in Lineage of Star. Now you have the guts to come here again. Abysmal Saint Master, you really have guts. Aren't you worried that Emperor 13 will take action against you again? Jian Wushuang humphed coldly. Abysmal Saint Master quivered, then he clenched his teeth and said, Jian Wushuang, don't think bringing up Emperor 13 can scare me. Back then when we were in Lineage of Star, I could tell that although Emperor 13 saved you, I reckon you don't even know why he would do that yourself. In other words, you and he aren't that close. It is because of a certain reason he didn't wish for you to die. That's why he saved you. In other words, as long as I don't kill you, Emperor 13 won't reveal himself. I only want Green Fire World. As for if you are going to die, it doesn't matter. As long as I don't kill you. Abysmal Saint Master was still fearful of the mysterious expert Emperor 13. At least, before he was confident enough to deal with Emperor 13, he absolutely wouldn't dare to kill Jian Wushuang. However, he thought that as long as he didn't try to kill Jian Wushuang, Emperor 13 wouldn't surface. Let's not waste time with him. Seize the time and suppress him directly. Let's talk after we conquer Green Fire World, Great Emperor Colored Glaze said. Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Zhi-Su nodded simultaneously. The aura of the three Great Emperor experts immediately spread around. Great Emperor Colored Glaze's chilliness soared and froze the surrounding void. Abysmal Saint Master was as dark as usual, boundless darkness without any light. Great Emperor Zhi-Su was purely imaginary. He made people feel that he was like a cloud that was floating in the air. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The three of them took action at the same time. Jian Wushuang's eyes dilated in shock. Then he took out a token. The token belonged to Emperor Bai. Mr. Emperor Bai. Jian Wushuang sent a message at his fastest possible speed. As for how long it would take until Emperor Bai reply his message, Jian Wushuang had no idea either. However, he had to block everyone outside of Green Fire World before that. It naturally included the three great emperors in front of him. Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zhi-Su and Great Emperor Colored Glaze were in the 3rd, 5th and 6th place respectively. They were all powerful great emperors. Theoretically, their strengths are just like their ranking indicated. However, Abysmal Saint Master was severely injured by Emperor 13, and he has yet to recover fully. Hence, among the three, he was the weakest while Great Emperor Zhi-Su was the strongest. Jian Wushuang thought to himself. Then he made up his mind. He flipped his hand and 5 fire godly spirit mirrors appeared. He let the divine power flow into the 5 tall godly spirits in the universe. The moment the 5 godly spirits appeared, the surrounding void immediately became cold. Jian, you are best at manipulation of power of spacetime. You keep Great Emperor Zhi-Su occupied. 5 godly spirits hold Great Emperor Colored Glaze back. As for Abysmal Saint Master, I'll take care of him. After Jian Wushuang commanded, Jian and the 5 godly spirits took action. Jian Wushuang also drew his Blood Mountain sword at the first instance, and there was sword intention billowing. At the same time, he revealed 8 heads and 16 arms. He immediately charged at Abysmal Saint Master. Both parties immediately collided directly. Great Emperor Zhi-Su was the strongest at the scene, and he was very skillful. His figure was vague and insubstantial. However, Jian, who was in charge, dealt with him and could manipulate power of spacetime far better than everyone else. Although he was weaker, he definitely wouldn't be defeated in a short time. The 5 fire formation formed by the 5 godly spirits was powerful. Great Emperor Colored Glaze already experienced it before. She wanted to break the 5 fire formation, but it was difficult for her as well. The only battle that had an extremely big disparity would be the battle between Abysmal Saint Master and Jian Wushuang. Die! Jian Wushuang was raging with anger. He appeared before Abysmal Saint Master and wielded a sword each with his 18 arms. Every stroke of sword light contained boundless power of reincarnation at a terrifyingly fast speed. Most importantly, it collaborated with his own divine power and the power of ancient tribe bloodline. Then it exploded with billowing power. However, Abysmal Saint Master didn't care about such an attack. Such a joke! Abysmal Saint Master sneered and casually pointed. Then, boundless darkness flowed out and instantly formed a black hand that grasped the void in front at lightning speed. Jian Wushuang slashed out with many sword lights, but the dark hand broke them apart. Jian Wushuang, you are only a real god. No matter how powerful you are, you could only have the fighting power of a peak emperor god at most. How dare you fight against me? Who gave you such courage? Abysmal Saint Master looked at Jian Wushuang in disdain as he spat his scornful remark. Humph! Jian Wushuang humphed coldly as he retreated. Swoosh! 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 There were 5 continuous resplendent golden lights which appeared next to Abysmal Saint Master. The 5 golden lights were extremely fast. Abysmal Saint Master raised his eyebrows and a dark protective barrier substantiated. The 5 golden lights hit the dark protective barrier and it shattered into pieces after 4 loud thuds. Then, the final golden light aimed at Abysmal Saint Master's head without hindrance. Abysmal Saint Master looked surprised, but his figure turned illusionary and he dodged the golden light easily. Abysmal Saint Master regained stability in the void and couldn't help but look at the 5 golden lights. Is this your infamous golden sword? You only had 4 previously, but now you have 5. Plus, they look like they have become much stronger. It seems that you have improved greatly. Huh. Abysmal Saint Master looked at him with a cold gaze. It was true. It had been a total of 12,000 years since the war in Lineage of Star. To the ordinary almighties, the time span was naturally nothing. However, to Jian Wushuang, his power was of course different. During the 12,000 years, his comprehension towards doctrine had heightened massively. His comprehension of spacetime doctrine and extermination doctrine had reached the extreme limit of the 8th level. He was only 1 step away from the 9th level and his soul power became much stronger too. As a result, his control of Hong Jun Golden Sword had grown too. Not only could he drive the 5th Hong Jun Golden Sword, but his Hong Jun Golden Sword power increased tremendously. Previously, one of his Hong Jun Golden Sword equaled the power of an attack of a peak emperor god. Now, the power of his Hong Jun Golden Sword was equivalent to a peak emperor god's full hit with unique skill or secret skill. With the collaboration of 5 swords, they were of course fierce. I really belittled you. With 5 Hong Jun Golden Swords, you should be able to be on par with an underworld god. However, you are still nothing in front of him. Abysmal Saint Master smiled coldly. Rumble. A huge dark whirlpool appeared behind Jian Wushuang. The dark whirlpool was unfathomable and contained boundless extermination power. At the very moment it appeared, Jian Wushuang's body was pulled and dragged greatly, as though he was going to be swallowed by the dark whirlpool. In the middle of the dark whirlpool, Abysmal Saint Master stepped on a dark demon dragon as they plunged out. Roar! The demon dragon let out a roar and its roar shook the sky. Layers of dark ripples spread in the air as Abysmal Saint Master waved. Virum! He waved and a large dark cloud pressed at Jian Wushuang. The dark cloud covered the sky and the power that it contained was far stronger than an emperor god. Jian Wushuang's eyes were bloodshot while a terrifying sword intention swept out from his body. Among his 18 arms, there were 4 that were holding a sword at the same time. The swords were naturally Blood Mountain swords. Then, Blood Mountain sword was roaring for blood in madness. It contained boundless unyieldingness. King's sword principle. First move. Slash. He was just like a monarch high and above as he raised the sword in his hand. When the sword slashed, there would be hundreds of millions of heads that would fall to the ground. Quang! A terrifying sword light was instantly magnified and engulfed tens of thousands of miles when it was slashed out. The sword light was shimmering in gold, looking rather eye-catching. It immediately hit the dark clouds above that were pressing down. Hong! The sword light pierced it. Then, the large dark cloud immediately dispersed. Ha! Abysmal Saint Master looked at Jian Wushuang in shock. He could tell that Jian Wushuang's power had reached the level of a great emperor. He had never used the secret skill of Star Palace, nor did he break any ancient star. But his sword principle itself had reached such level. Of course, the King's sword principle was originally fierce. As Jian Wushuang's comprehension of sword principle increased, the power of his sword principle naturally became even stronger. The stroke was Jian Wushuang's strongest stroke. After that stroke, although Abysmal Saint Master's attack was blocked, Jian Wushuang didn't let loose, but he flicked his wrist, and a scroll painting appeared in his hand. Then, he threw the scroll painting in the air, and the scroll painting blended into the void. Suddenly, the sky above immediately churned. A captivating world of mountain and river appeared in the sky. Mountain River as palm and 9 province as seal. The third move, overwhelm the rain. Rumble. A vast land descended mightily. With Jian Wushuang's power, he performed the seal of overwhelm the rain without holding back. The power of the descending land barely reached the threshold of a great emperor. Looking at the descending land, Abysmal Saint Master's gaze was cold, and a few dark lights suddenly burst out. Hong! 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 A few dark lights piercing the land, and the entire lofty land immediately shattered into a few pieces. Boy, your skills are not too shabby. However, too bad. It's useless. Abysmal Saint Master's voice was cold. Jian Wushuang's face grew dim. King's Sword Principle. 9 Province Seal, the third seal. They were both his strongest attack skills. However, even though he had performed with his all, he had barely reached the threshold of a great emperor. Compared to a true emperor, he was nowhere near one. Just then, Abysmal, what are you doing? Why don't you hurry up and suppress that boy? There was a low bellow from the surrounding battlefield. The one who had spoken was naturally Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Great Emperor Zisu and herself were held back by the 5 godly spirits and Jianyi. In a short time, it would be difficult to defeat their opponents. The only breaking point was with Abysmal Saint Master. Only if Abysmal Saint Master suppressed Jian Wushuang, and then he had an extra hand to join forces with them, Jianyi and the 5 godly spirits could be defeated in an instance. By then, the battle would end. However, Abysmal Saint Master had yet to take Jian Wushuang down since the beginning of the war. Hearing Great Emperor Colored Glaze's roar, Abysmal Saint Master's corner of his lips twitched. He couldn't help but resent it. However, he couldn't do anything to Jian Wushuang. He was a top great emperor on the top 3 on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list. Even though he had yet to recover fully from his injuries, he was still much stronger than many other great emperor. He was far beyond Jian Wushuang as well. Most importantly was that he held scruples when he fought with Jian Wushuang. He was afraid that he might kill Jian Wushuang by accident if the hit was too powerful. Hence, he held back when he attacked. But in the end, because he held back, he couldn't take down Jian Wushuang. Son, look at how I am going to trap you in. Abysmal Saint Master's voice was cold, but he had finally revealed his true power. There was boundless darkness that swept over and formed a huge black chain. The black chain was extremely sturdy, but they extended from all corners of the void without any symptoms, especially in the void around Jian Wushuang. There were dark whirlpools that appeared from nowhere. The black chains were moving to entangle Jian Wushuang simultaneously. Jian Wushuang's face changed and the sword lights continuously swept out from him. His fighting power exploded to its extreme limit. He wanted to break apart those chains that were flying towards him. However, the chains were too flexible, too fast, and too plentiful. One slash after another extended over again and again. In a short while, the black chains formed a huge prison to seal off the spacetime that Jian Wushuang was in. It naturally trapped Jian Wushuang within as well. Shit! Jian Wushuang looked shocked and the sword intention swept out to slash the surrounding prison. However, no matter how he attacked, the black prison didn't move. When he performed King Emperor skill again, it could only shake the dark cover, but it was not enough to break it. After Jian Wushuang was trapped in the darkness prison, Abysmal Saint Master had the free time to fight elsewhere. Swoosh! Abysmal Saint Master's body moved, and he obviously moved to where the other 2 battles were. Shit! Jian Wushuang suddenly thought, and the 7 ancient stars in between his eyebrows lit up. He knew that as soon as Abysmal Saint Master had the bandwidth to join other battles, he would be defeated. Hence, he had to perform his trump card to break the darkness prison and keep Abysmal Saint Master occupied again. He had 2 kinds of trump cards, the secret skill of Star Palace and the Star Destruction skill. The secret skill of Star Palace was extremely important, but it had yet to reach the time to really perform it. He naturally could only perform star destruction skill. Just as Jian Wushuang was preparing to break his ancient star to increase his power. Hehe. It's so noisy here. There was a burst of faint laughter from the nearby void. The voice contained a special power. When it spread over to the battlefield, everyone who was fighting ferociously stopped instantly. Abysmal Saint Master, who had been hurrying to the other two battlefields, also stopped his footsteps to look at the direction of the source of the voice. Jian Wushuang also looked in the direction of the source of the voice. In the void, there was an enchanting woman in a tight red robe leaping over. Her footsteps were very slow, but every step she took leaped over a very long distance. Merely after a few steps, she appeared on the battlefield. The moment she appeared, her beautiful eyes looked at Jian Wushuang directly. Jian Wushuang, long time no see. Do you need help? Jian Wushuang, long time no see. Do you need help? The incomer's faint laughter reverberated in the universe. Everyone at the scene was astonished. Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zissou and Great Emperor Colored Glaze saw the incomer and their eyes dilated in shock. No doubt, they had never seen an enchanting woman in a red robe. However, the enchanting woman in the red robe gave out an aura that wasn't weaker than theirs. She was definitely at the level of a great emperor. The moment she appeared, she brought about great pressure to the other three great emperors. She was obviously not only a great emperor but an extremely strong great emperor. Previously, there was a mysterious Emperor 13. Then, Jian Wushuang's sword servant reached the level of a great emperor. Now, there's another great emperor? She obviously knew Jian Wushuang personally. Since when did great emperor experts become so invaluable? Great Emperor Colored Glaze muttered. However, they didn't know that Jian Wushuang was quite shocked then. He looked at the enchanting woman in the red robe and it stirred a great commotion in his heart. The enchanting woman in the red robe. He of course knew her. Lord Spirit Sound. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but clenched. It's her. King of Venomous Worms who was living on Jian Wushuang was shocked too. That was right. The enchanting woman in the red robe who had suddenly come was Lord Spirit Sound who had stayed in Star Foggy Sea back then. Back then, before Jian Wushuang had yet to leave Green Fire World, he had once received a great opportunity. It was in Star Foggy Sea. Through the test on Star Island, he became a disciple of Star Palace in Lineage of Star. Then, Star Foggy Sea was under Lord Spirit Sound's control. When Jian Wushuang first saw Lord Spirit Sound, he thought Lord Spirit Sound was from Lineage of Star, and it was Master of Star Palace who had intentionally arranged to pick disciples for Lineage of Star. Even Lord Spirit Sound had said that herself. When Jian Wushuang passed the test and became a disciple of Star Palace in Lineage of Star, Star Foggy Sea had been within Jian Wushuang's control. Then, Lord Spirit Sound left and Jian Wushuang had no idea where she went. In the beginning, Jian Wushuang never minded much. But later on, when he really arrived in Lineage of Star, then became the new Palace Master of Lineage of Star, and after he had found out more about the environment of Greenfire World, he noticed the unusual. Firstly, everyone from Lineage of Star, including Master of Star Palace, had no idea who Lord Spirit Sound was. Hence, it was even more impossible that it could have been Master of Star Palace who arranged it. Secondly, under normal circumstances, it would be impossible for Star Foggy Sea to appear in Greenfire World. After knowing this, Jian Wushuang started suspecting Lord Spirit Sound's true identity. He had even asked King of Venomous Worm about that before. After all, King of Venomous Worms had stayed in Star Foggy Sea for a very long time, but he had said that he wasn't sure either. Just then, Lord Spirit Sound reappeared in front of him again. Jian Wushuang had finally determined that Lord Spirit Sound was from a great background. As for controlling Star Foggy Sea for Master of Star Palace, it was a plain joke. After all, the aura that Lord Spirit Sound had displayed was of great emperor level. During the Master of Star Palace's peak, he was only a peak emperor god. How could he command Lord Spirit Sound? Jian Wushuang took a deep breath. He didn't think further but answered, Lord Spirit Sound, lend me a hand. I, Jian Wushuang, and Green Fire World will remember this. No problem, Lord Spirit Sound smiled faintly. After that, she suddenly pointed with her delicate finger. Rumble. The space-time shook. The dark void where Jian Wushuang was instantly dispersed and the vast darkness prison around him broke apart. There was boundless light that filled the universe. Jian Wushuang moved and he immediately shook off the darkness prison. The sight shocked Abysmal Saint Master. She broke my darkness prison so easily. This person's power is not any weaker than mine. Swoosh. Swoosh. Great Emperor Zissou and Great Emperor Colored Glaze appeared next to Abysmal Saint Master. As for Jian Yi and the 5 godly spirits, they naturally came behind Jian Wushuang. Lord Spirit Sound. Thank you. Jian Wushuang expressed his gratitude. Hehe. Don't worry about it. I have stayed in Green Fire World for so many years and I do have feelings for the place. How could I just sit and watch outsiders trying to conquer Green Fire World? Lord Spirit Sound said with a smile. Jian Wushuang nodded and he looked at the 3 great emperors again. Lord Spirit Sound, could you please help me keep one of them busy next? Jian Wushuang asked. Sure. Lord Spirit Sound nodded, and then she pointed at Great Emperor Zissou. Among the 3, this person in the purple robe is the strongest. I will keep him occupied so he doesn't have extra time to attack. As for the other 2, you can take care of them. No problem. Jian Wushuang nodded heavily. As long as Lord Spirit Sound could keep Great Emperor Zissou occupied, Jian Yi, the 5 gods and himself could deal with Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Let's do it. Lord Spirit Sound didn't waste any more time but flew out. Hey, you in purple robe, your opponent is I. Lord Spirit Sound flashed a malicious smile at Great Emperor Zissou. There was a strange light in her eyes. Great Emperor Zissou's heart skipped a beat. His face instantly grew solemn and he lost the relaxed look earlier. Oh, you could resist my magic. Not too shabby, Lord Spirit Sound commented. Then, there was a evil-looking crimson sickle in her hand. Wow! From a very far distance, the crimson sickle in Lord Spirit Sound's hand was swung out, just like Death's sickle. Wow! 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 The 3 sickle lights swept out simultaneously and instantly formed 3 brilliant sickle rivers in the void. The 3 sickle rivers were beautifully magnificent. They were captivating. The sickle river flowed over and Great Emperor Zissou instantly felt that he was in a billowing sickle ocean that he couldn't shake off. He instantly counterattacked. Every time he broke a sickle light, there was another brilliant sickle light that flew at him again. In an instant, Great Emperor Zissou of the 5th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list was suppressed by Lord Spirit Sound. So strong. Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Colored Glaze's faces changed at the sight. They could tell that although Lord Spirit Sound was far below the mysterious expert Emperor 13, she was much stronger than all the ordinary great emperors in Eternal Chaotic World. If they have to list her in terms of ranking and power, she absolutely could fight with Red Dragon King in the 2nd place. Even if I were to be at my peak status, I reckon I would still have the lower hand when I fought with this person, Abysmal Saint Master said. Then Jian Wushuang, Jian Yi, and the 5 godly spirits moved at the same time. Hong! Both parties continued to fight again. However, it was different then. Great Emperor Zissou were suppressed by Lord Spirit Sound. There was only Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Colored Glaze left. Jian Wushuang sent Jian Yi to keep Great Emperor Colored Glaze occupied. As for Abysmal Saint Master, Jian Wushuang had dealt with him with the assistance of the 5 godly spirits. Previously, it was only myself and I was not your match. But now, Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold. At the same time, the first ancient star in between his eyebrows immediately broke. Among the 7 ancient stars, he had only broken one. It was nothing as it was quite easy to recover it. With the breaking of the ancient star, Jian Wushuang's overall power instantly increased tremendously. In addition to that, he had the 5 godly spirits with him. Besides, Lord Spirit Sound who already suppressed Great Emperor Zissou, as she suppressed Great Emperor Zissou, she could perform some sickle light occasionally to the surrounding battlefield. That gave some Jian Wushuang some assistance. Fight! Jian Wushuang was billowing with murderous intention, and they fought with Abysmal Saint Master directly. Then, Abysmal Saint Master wasn't as relaxed as before. It would be impossible if he wanted to trap Jian Wushuang as easily. Damn it! My power had yet to reach my peak status. Alone, it would be impossible for me to take Jian Wushuang down. Abysmal Saint Master's face grew grave, and he couldn't help but steal a glance at the battlefield by the side. He realized that Great Emperor Colored Glaze's situation was quite similar to his. As for Great Emperor Zisu, it was one-sided. Where did Jian Wushuang find such powerful assistance? Abysmal Saint Master was roaring in his head. Previously, he had had the terrifying Emperor 13 to help him. Now Jian Wushuang had another Great Emperor expert who was only stronger, not weaker, than when he was at his peak. How long had Jian Wushuang lived for? How could he be that capable? We're in big trouble. Great Emperor Colored Glaze looked cold as he looked around. With the assistance of that person, the three of us couldn't even lay a foot in Green Fire World, let alone conquering Green Fire World. That was true. The three of them were held back entirely. It was impossible to barge into Green Fire World. On top of that, one should know that the news about Green Fire World had spread all over. Although the three of them had rushed there, the speed of other experts from various forces absolutely wouldn't be any slower. As long as they couldn't conquer Green Fire World at the first instant, it would be difficult for them to achieve the greatest advantage. As expected, the experts from Eternal Chaotic World arrived in a short while. Those who rushed over were merely three ordinary Sir Gods. They were closer to Green Fire World, and they rushed over when they had found out about the existence of Green Fire World. When they arrived, they saw Green Fire World, and they also saw a shocking battle. My goodness, this is... Great Emperors? There are so many Great Emperors? Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zisu, and Great Emperor Colored Glaze. Also the infamous Sword Emperor. His sword servant became a Great Emperor as well. As for the enchanting woman in the red robe, I don't know her, but she is powerful. She could even suppress Great Emperor Zisu directly. What are they doing? Why are they fighting? The few Sir Gods were astonished but mostly confused. Very soon they spread the news about the war. Most of the experts from various forces that were rushing over to Green Fire World were shocked at the news, and they traveled at an even faster speed. On the battlefield, regardless of if it was the three Great Emperors or those from Jian Wushuang's side, they noticed the surrounding experts. Jian Wushuang didn't care much. However, Abysmal Saint Master and Great Emperor Colored Glaze's faces grew grave. They knew that it might be only a few Sir Gods who had arrived, but in no time, there would be more experts. Even in the end, the entire Sanctuary Alliance or the entire Eternal Chaotic World would be there. That was fact. There were more and more experts gathering around Green Fire World. Most of them were Sir Gods and Emperor Gods. In no time, rumble. A vast figure descended from the sky, and there was an aura of Great Emperor level that spread. Purple Moon. It's Great Emperor Purple Moon. Every expert was impressed. Experts from both parties were fighting a battle, and they noticed the arrival of Great Emperor Purple Moon. Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zisu, and Great Emperor Colored Glaze were unhappy. But as Great Emperor Purple Moon had already arrived, it would be impossible if the three of them wanted to conquer Green Fire World first. The three of them immediately stopped. Why? Don't you want to continue the fight? Jian Wushuang's face was cold as he glared at the three Great Emperors. Jian Wushuang, you're just lucky. You got help from all the experts all the time. Abysmal Saint Master said coldly, and he couldn't help but look at Lord Spirit Sound. Until then, Lord Spirit Sound had seemed to be extremely at ease all this while. He wondered if she had really revealed all her power. Regardless, whatever power she displayed would be enough to gain Abysmal Saint Master's attention. Humph! Being able to get help from experts is my skill as well, Jian Wushuang replied coldly. Even though they had stopped fighting, both parties were still oppositional. Everyone, please calm down. Great Emperor Purple Moon walked over and said with a curious look as he watched both parties. What's going on? What's going on? Asked Jian Wushuang. Abysmal Saint Master said coldly. He carries a big secret with him. Big secret. Great Emperor Purple Moon was confused. It seems that Purple Moon has yet to know. Let me tell you, Green Fire World is Jian Wushuang's hometown. When I found out Green Fire World's unique point, I wanted to check it out at Green Fire World at the first instant. But in the end, he chased me out. I had no choice and asked Abysmal and Zissou to come along with me. But in the end, you saw that yourself. Great Emperor Colored Glaze smiled coldly. The moment Great Emperor Colored Glaze said that, everyone at the scene was stunned. There were gazes that were redirected to Jian Wushuang in shock. Green Fire World was Jian Wushuang's hometown? Was it a joke? Looking at the gazes that flew to him, Jian Wushuang had no intention of hiding. He replied, "Yes, Green Fire World is really my hometown. As such, without my permission, don't even think about entering Green Fire World." All experts at the scene went quiet when they heard that. Even Great Emperor Purple Moon's face changed. If Green Fire World was really as magical as the rumor said and had limitless possibilities, Sanctuary Alliance definitely would try to figure a way to conquer it. Then, make some changes to make Green Fire World a brand new sanctuary. In other words, Sanctuary Alliance would take control of everything there. However, Green Fire World was Jian Wushuang's hometown. After a while, Great Emperor Purple Moon finally spoke again. "Everyone, this is very serious. From my point of view, let's wait until the others arrive before we discuss this." Then, Great Emperor Purple Moon stole a glance at Jian Wushuang. From the bottom of his heart, Great Emperor Purple Moon would be on Jian Wushuang's side. However, Green Fire World was associated with many parties. He, who was an ordinary Great Emperor, couldn't do much. Hearing what Great Emperor Purple Moon had said, the three of them nodded simultaneously. "All right then, let's wait until the others arrive." Abysmal Saint Master looked cold. Their initial plan had failed anyway. It would be impossible if they wanted to conquer Green Fire World and get the biggest advantage. However, even if they couldn't get the biggest advantage, they absolutely wouldn't want to see Jian Wushuang continue to conquer such a great treasure. As for Jian Wushuang, he stood there without saying a word. He knew that it was a matter of time until he would have to deal with experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World. Hence, he had been well prepared since long ago. As time flew past, there were more and more experts that came to the void around Green Fire World. The experts who came saw Green Fire World, and they found out about the relationship between Jian Wushuang and Green Fire World. Suddenly, there was shock and astonishment. No wonder Sword Emperor was so talented. It turns out that his hometown is Green Fire World. It is only a unique place like Green Fire World that could nurture a genius like him. Plus, before the news of the ancient battlefield spread, Green Fire World possessed it. Sword Emperor definitely received great advantage from the ancient battlefield. That's a definite. I have heard of Sword Emperor's billowing skills long ago. I think all his skills are from this ancient battlefield. Previously, during the war in Lineage of Star, they brought out so many Dao soldiers, and where were they from? There's no doubt they were definitely obtained from this ancient battlefield. Countless experts were talking about it. Then, most of the experts who were wandering in the ancient battlefield had already arrived outside Green Fire World. Even great emperors besides Great Emperor Purple Moon, there were another 3. Including Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zissou, and Great Emperor Colored Glaze, the 15 Great Emperors on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, there were 7 of them there. As for the remaining Great Emperors, either they cultivated in seclusion all year round or they were staying back to guard Eternal Chaotic World. Plus, these were merely human cultivators' camp. Those special tribes also had a large number of experts rushing over. Especially the top 4 peak tribes that had Great Emperors standing guard. The 4 peak tribes conquered a piece of sanctuary each among the special tribes. Their positions and foundations were extraordinary. The 4 peak tribes were Ancient Gods, Sky-Devouring Clan, God-Eater, and Black Water Dragon. Among the 4, Ancient Gods were widely acknowledged as the best at close body combat. On top of that, they were also recognized as the most prosperous tribe. Their Ancient God Emperor was once known to be the top overlord in the First Era as well. Sky-Devouring Clan was known to be the most barbaric tribe. They grew through consumption of various bloodline powers. They had the smallest population, but their overall power were second to ancient gods. The remaining God-Eater and Black Water Dragon tribes were ancient, and they were extremely powerful as well. Then, the four peak tribes had great emperors attending the scene personally. The great emperor from ancient god tribe who came had a total of 9 stars in between his eyebrows. Behind the 9-star ancient god, Jian Wushuang saw 2 familiar faces. They were King Gutong and King Guyu. King Gutong were friends with Jian Wushuang. It could be said that besides Holocaust Sect and Acheron Palace, who were always in the dark, all experts from various forces in Eternal Chaotic World were there. And they only had one target, which was Green Fire World. However, if they wanted to step foot in Green Fire World, they had to first wipe out the only hindrance, which was Jian Wushuang, who blocked the Green Fire World. Jian Wushuang, Lord Spirit Sound, and Jian Yi stood side by side. His gaze was cold as he glared at the thickly dotted experts in front of him. He felt an unprecedented pressure. I'm impressed. So many chaotic realms. I think more than half of the cultivators of the chaotic realm from this era gathered here. Lord Spirit Sound was astonished. She looked at Jian Wushuang and asked, Jian Wushuang, there are so many people who are eyeing Green Fire World. Are you confident you can protect it? I don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head. You don't know? Lord Spirit Sound creased his eyebrows. I really don't know, but I can play a bet. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes, and there was determination in his eyes. Jian Wushuang's body immediately moved, and he flew to the experts in front. When he arrived before the experts, Jian Wushuang stopped and took a deep breath. He bowed to the experts and spoke. I greet you all. Everyone should be here for my Green Fire World. However, it's a pity that Green Fire World is only a small temple. Can't contain so many experts. Hence, I apologize for the shortcomings in our hospitality. Sword Emperor. There was a cold voice. A tall man who was red-skinned as though he was covered in flame stood out. The tall man was called Yen Zun, one of the great emperor from Sanctuary Alliance. However, there were 15 great emperors on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, and Yen Zun happened to be in the 15th place. Then, Yen Zun said with a loud and clear voice, Green Fire World is the core of the battlefield. It contains boundless potential and magic. Such an important place shouldn't be conquered by you alone. Please hand over Green Fire World. You are also a member of Sanctuary Alliance. As long as you hand over Green Fire World, Sanctuary Alliance won't mistreat you too. We can discuss to let you keep territory in Green Fire World. What do you think? Keep territory? I wonder, Mr. Yen Zun, how about the cultivators in Green Fire World? Jian Wushuang asked. This? Yen Zun thought for a while and answered. If Green Fire World were to be that magical, Sanctuary Alliance would definitely remake a brand new sanctuary that is far better than any one of the 10 cultivation sanctuaries. It might even surpass Thunderbolt Island. However, such an important place isn't suitable for any ordinary cultivators there. However, don't worry. We will find a way to relocate all your cultivators in Green Fire World. I assure you that they will continue to cultivate and grow. Although it was Yen Zun's speech, he had been in Sanctuary Alliance long enough that he was certain that the result would be as such after the discussion among the higher-ups from Sanctuary Alliance. However, the result was definitely not something Jian Wushuang wished for. As expected, Jian Wushuang's face grew cold. To make Green Fire World into another cultivation sanctuary far beyond Thunderbolt Island? Jian Wushuang believed that Green Fire World absolutely had the potential. It might be even better. However, to create Cultivation Sanctuary, it would require all cultivators in Green Fire World to relocate. Firstly, these cultivators were nurtured in Green Fire World to begin with, and it was their hometown. Why would they need to be relocated? Who would be willing to leave their home? Besides, Green Fire World was a big world. It contained many ancient worlds in different sizes. In accumulation, how many cultivators would there be? With so many cultivators, even if they really relocated, just how difficult would it be? During the process of relocation, it was inevitable that a large number of cultivators or innocent people would die. The people had been plunged into an abyss of misery anyway. The condition that Yen Zun proposed was considered generous in Sanctuary Alliance. If it wasn't for Jian Wushuang, they would have conquered Greenfire World by force with thunderous measures. As for cultivators in Greenfire World, Sanctuary Alliance would at most leave those who were stronger and more talented. The remaining, including countless living spirits in ancient worlds, would be wiped out straight away. That was Sanctuary Alliance's cruelty. To Sanctuary Alliance, they only cared about the safety of the entire eternal chaotic world. As for cultivators in the big world, they wouldn't care. Sanctuary Alliance didn't care, but Jian Wushuang couldn't not care, because Greenfire World was his hometown. How about the special tribes? Jian Wushuang looked at the experts who were from special tribes. Sanctuary Alliance want to make Greenfire World into a brand new sanctuary. We naturally won't stop them. However, if Greenfire World were to be that magical, the few of our special tribes would only need Sanctuary Alliance to agree to segregate a territory for us to cultivate. The great emperor from Sky-Devouring Clan spoke. Sanctuary Alliance and the special tribe had always been keeping a mutual position. Plus, there were times where, if it concerned the safety of eternal chaotic world, both parties would work together. Hence, there wasn't any hatred nor resentment. Just like Greenfire World, a special place, as the special tribes listed their conditions, Sanctuary Alliance would mostly agree. It seemed that the cultivators in Greenfire World are destined to be relocated? Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. Jian Wushuang, don't be stubborn. With you alone, you won't be able to keep Greenfire World, Yen Sun advised. Jian Wushuang, do you still want to be stubborn about this? Abysmal Saint Master smiled coldly. He was dying for Jian Wushuang to persist. Then, all experts from various forces would be raging with anger, especially the special tribe that was hot-tempered. It'd be best if they were to kill Jian Wushuang straight away. Sword Emperor, hand over Greenfire World. Considering the fact that you carry the bloodline of Ancient God, I guarantee that if you were to be willing to hand out Greenfire World, they absolutely won't have the guts to do anything to the cultivators in Greenfire World. The 9-star Ancient God who lead the Ancient God spoke loud and clear. Jian Wushuang couldn't help but look at the 9-star Ancient God. He had heard long ago that there was a 9-star Ancient God in Ancient God tribe, but it was his first time seeing one. I wonder how I should address you, Jian Wushuang asked. I am King Luo Yu, the 9-star Ancient God replied. King Luo Yu? The Luo family? Jian Wushuang was surprised. I once received the blood essence inheritance of an 8-star Ancient God, King Luo Jin. He should be related to you, right? King Luo Jin? Your Ancient God bloodline is from King Luo Jin. King Luo Yu's face changed. King Luo Yu, I once visited Ancient God Sanctuary and I know of an Ancient God too. From what I know, Ancient God tribe has an iron discipline whereby bloodline is of paramount importance. Regardless of their strength, as long as their bloodline is stronger than yours, you have to be respectful and you even have to listen to their command. I wonder if that's true, Jian Wushuang said. It is. King Luo Yu nodded. Ancient God tribe is a tribe that honors the bloodline. We believed in Ancient God Emperor from the first era. Over the years, this has never changed. If so, there was a strange light in Jian Wushuang's eyes. Then, vroom! There was a boundless bloodline power that exploded from Jian Wushuang's body. The bloodline power was extremely intense and vast. It was also very powerful. Jian Wushuang naturally let his ancient tribe bloodline power to flow out then. Ancient tribe was one of the 4 god tribes back in ancient times. It was a complete version of Ancient God. Ancient God was merely a faint bloodline that was segregated from Ancient Tribe. In terms of purity of the bloodline, Ancient Tribe bloodline was naturally above Ancient God. Then, as Jian Wushuang displayed his bloodline power, the experts from various forces didn't care but only thought that Jian Wushuang's bloodline power was ferocious. However, the ancient gods at the scene, for instance King Gutong and King Guyu, and even 9-star ancient god King Luo Yu, were instantly dumbfounded. This bloodline, royal bloodline, it wouldn't be mistaken. A bloodline aura that was sufficient for me to yield to. It is absolutely royal bloodline. It might even be purer than royal bloodline. How is this possible? The experts from Ancient God Tribe looked at Jian Wushuang in astonishment. They had known long ago that Jian Wushuang carried Ancient God bloodline and it was royal Ancient God. However, they had never expected that Jian Wushuang's bloodline would have heightened again and reached a brand new level. King Luo Yu, do you remember what you said earlier? Jian Wushuang looked at King Luo Yu coldly. The expression on King Luo Yu's face was complicated. After he struggled for a bit emotionally, he let out a long sigh. King Luo Yu lifted his head again and the look he gave to Jian Wushuang had a tinge of reverence. Sword Emperor, although I have no idea how you obtained the bloodline, no doubt, the purity of your bloodline is above mine. There is no one in Ancient God Tribe that could compare to it favorably. In history, Ancient God Tribe has always honored bloodline above all. If you are willing to, you can head back to Ancient God Sanctuary with me and I will gather all masters of 9 cities to discuss taking you as our new Ancient God Emperor. I believe no one would dare to suspect. Jian Wushuang was surprised by his reply. The surrounding experts from various forces burst into an uproar. Although they had known since long ago that Ancient God honored bloodline the most, King Luo Yu was a great emperor. His power was far stronger than Jian Wushuang's and he should be on the top among Ancient God Tribe. At such a crucial moment, he could totally ignore it if he were to meet anyone who had a higher bloodline than him. However, they never expected that King Luo Yu would immediately show his willingness to take Jian Wushuang as the new Ancient God Emperor. This King Luo Yu is so stupid. Many of them thought to themselves. They thought King Luo Yu was stupid. However, they weren't people of Ancient God Tribe. They naturally wouldn't understand how much Ancient God Tribe values bloodline. Actually, not only Ancient God Tribe but also the other 3 peak tribes, they valued bloodline as important too. But just not as ridiculous as Ancient God Tribe. As for Jian Wushuang, he was shocked as well. He never thought that King Luo Yu would recognize his bloodline and immediately take him on as the new Ancient God Emperor. King Luo Yu, as you recognize my bloodline, who would you stand by if I wanted to protect Green Fire World? Jian Wushuang asked. Of course, by your side, King Luo Yu said without hesitation. At the same time, his eyes glowed with golden luster as he looked at everyone around. Listen up, although Sword Emperor has yet to become Ancient God Emperor, his bloodline is right there. We Ancient God Tribe has to follow his lead from today onwards. Whoever goes against Sword Emperor will be our enemy too. King Luo Yu was determined and firm with his decision. He didn't leave any space for negotiation. There were many people who creased their eyebrows at the sight. Ancient God Tribe was one of the strongest tribes among the unique tribes. It was said that there was not only a 9-star Ancient God, there were also 8-star Ancient Gods and 7-star Ancient Gods. With such powerful force, there was no one who dared to ignore them. Humph, so what if the Ancient God Tribe is supporting you? Today, Sanctuary Alliance and many other unique tribes are here to conquer Green Fire World. With Ancient God Tribe alone, you can't stop us. Colored Glaze Great Emperor's cold voice reverberated in the air. The surrounding people looked rather enthusiastic. It was true. Almost all top forces in Eternal Chaotic World gathered there, including Sanctuary Alliance. With Ancient God Tribe alone, he didn't stand a chance for all forces and experts to give way. Jian Wushuang, I'll ask you for the last time. Are you moving away? Colored Glaze Great Emperor stared at Jian Wushuang with a cold look. All forces and experts at the scene were staring at Jian Wushuang. There were chilly gleams in their eyes. Just then, Jian Wushuang, who had everyone's attention, lifted his head again. On his cold face, there was a tinge of madness. He didn't speak and only beckoned to Green Fire World nearby. Jian Nantian in Green Fire World's formation saw Jian Wushuang's signal, and he immediately plunged to Jian Wushuang. When he appeared next to Jian Wushuang, he waved and took out a pearl. The pearl looked murky as it contained a unique aura. Looking at the pearl, the madness in Jian Wushuang's eyes flowed out. He glared at the countless experts before him. These experts could almost represent the entire Eternal Chaotic World. Then, he was fighting against the entire Eternal Chaotic World alone. Even so, he wasn't nervous or afraid. There was only determination and madness. Everyone, let me show you something. You'll definitely be very emotional after you see it. Jian Wushuang smiled maliciously and handed the blurry pearl over. All the experts at the scene couldn't help but look at the pearl. Everyone started to feel it using their soul power. Through the pearl, they could instantly sense the existence of the surrounding ancient battlefield. Not only could they sense it, but they could also recognize it clearly. The boundless ancient battlefield was before all experts' eyes then. So huge! This ancient battlefield is so vast. It's too vast. The area that we searched is only a drop in a bucket compared to the entire ancient battlefield. With such a vast ancient battlefield, it is at least 10 times bigger than the one in ancient Mystery Land. All experts at the scene were astonished. After a short while, they noticed a huge object on the ancient battlefield. Skull. An extremely huge skull. A skull that was countless times bigger than any other worlds. Just like Green Fire World, it was a world that considered quite large in size. However, Green Fire World looked only like a small spot in between the eyebrows of the skull. How is this possible? Unbelievable. This is simply unbelievable. Who is this? Whose head is this? Whose head could be that huge? Could it be a head of an expert from ancient times? Impossible. Even though there were countless experts during ancient times, there shouldn't be any expert's body that could be that huge in size. Dumbfounded. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were shocked by the huge skull. Actually, they couldn't be blamed. When Jian Wushuang first saw the skull, he was shocked too. He found it unbelievable too. The skull was too shocking. Compared to the boundless ancient battlefield, the skull was even more astonishing. The few great emperors at the scene, such as Abysmal Saint Master, Great Emperor Zisu, Colored Glaze Great Emperor Yenzun, King Luoyu and other great emperors from the other 3 special tribes, were all gawking at the sight. As great emperors, they were extremely experienced. However, it was their first time coming across such an unbelievable sight. However, after a short while of astonishment, all experts at the scene burst with excitement. Excitement. Yeah, excitement. They had previously only known that the ancient battlefield contained boundless opportunities, but they couldn't determine just how impressive the place was. However, as they saw the entire ancient battlefield through the pearl then, they had a better understanding of the ancient battlefield. Merely the boundless territory size was enough to make them go crazy. The unbelievable skill shocked them even further. One should know that the more astonishing it was, the more unusual the skull was. There was no doubt that the territory where the skull was located absolutely contained unbelievable opportunities. At the same time, they saw that the location of Greenfire World was right in between the eyebrows of the skull, while the skull was located in the core of the ancient battlefield. Even a silly man could see the value of Greenfire World. It was absolutely much greater than what they had guessed earlier. It was truly a huge treasure that could drive the entire Sanctuary Alliance crazy. The experts' gazes were burning with enthusiasm. It was unprecedented enthusiasm. Even the great emperors were burning enthusiastically. Jian Wushuang smirked coldly at the sight. All of you are enjoying the view of this ancient battlefield, enjoying the discovery of the huge skull? Didn't you notice anything different in the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield? Everyone was caught off guard. Then they looked into the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield. The experts fixed their gazes upon the ancient battlefield, but they had never bothered with the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield. When they heard Jian Wushuang's comment, they looked at the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield through the light. Then, they noticed the difference in the void. Space-time storm? Such a huge space-time storm, and this space-time storm covered the entire battlefield? My goodness! Such a huge space-time storm. I have lived for over 1 million of years, but it is my first time seeing this. Many experts at the scene exclaimed in surprise. The ancient battlefield was huge, but the space-time storm could engulf the entire battlefield. The size could be well imagined. Of course, with such a huge space-time storm, the energy contained was definitely shocking too. Just a space-time storm? Jian Wushuang scoffed. Among the experts, there were people who immediately found the unique point of the space-time storm. No, Not just a space-time storm, there is also a grand formation. In the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield, there is a grand formation. The formation merged into one with the surrounding space-time storm. That's why it is hardly noticeable, an Emperor God explained. The Emperor God was an accomplished one in formations. He said, and the other experts had found the trace of the grand formation. There is really a formation, and the formation is profound. A huge formation merged flawlessly with the space-time storm? Who set up this grand formation? Unbelievable. The grand formation is simply unbelievable. There were experts exclaiming in surprise again. The exclamations were mostly from those who were accomplished in formations. Because they had a better understanding of formations, they knew how difficult it was to set up such a huge formation. To be able to merge the formation with the surrounding boundless space-time storm flawlessly, it was shocking. Impossible. This is impossible. How could such a terrifying space-time storm merge with the formation flawlessly? Forget about us from the second era. Even in the first era, there was absolutely no one who could set up such great formation. Even in the ancient era, he would definitely be a top almighty in formations to be able to set up such a great formation. Everyone was astonished. All their gazes were surprised. Regardless of if they understood formation or not, as long as one was experienced, they should be able to tell how unbelievable the grand formation was. At least to all experts in eternal chaotic world, it was simply a dream to merge a grand formation to space-time storm. But then, someone had done it. Jian Wushuang looked at the expert's response in front of him with a faint smile. His voice slowly reverberated in the universe. Can you all see clearly? Are you astonished? Are you excited? Do you find it unbelievable? His voice had a tinge of disdain. All experts became quiet. All the gazes were fixed upon Jian Wushuang again. They didn't know what Jian Wushuang's purpose was when he took out the pearl and showed them the true appearance of the ancient battlefield, the surrounding space-time storm and the grand formation. At that very moment, Jian Wushuang waved and his willpower moved. Rumble. Heaven and earth quivered. There was a life-destroying aura that suddenly spread from the void above. The experts at the scene were stunned and looked towards the light. In the end, they saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. They saw in the surrounding void on the ancient battlefield, the huge space-time storm that was originally stable, all this while suddenly became extremely violent. Walala! Boundless space-time storm started churning in madness to destroy the Earth. The extermination aura that filled the universe and the entire ancient battlefield was from the space-time storm. At that very moment, everyone could feel the aura that the space-time storm gave out, an aura that could destroy heaven and earth. At the same time, they could faintly feel the power contained in space-time storm. Plus, the power had already started brewing and becoming very aggressive, and it continued to accumulate. It was as though the entire space-time storm would rain down on the ancient battlefield the very next moment. The scene shocked everyone. What is going on? Such terrifying power. If it were to rain down at the ancient battlefield, I wonder if the ancient battlefield could still survive. Gone. It'd be gone. If the power were to explode, the ancient battlefield would absolutely turn into a flatland. There wouldn't be anything left. Many experts answered. Then all the gazes turned to look at one person. Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang. It was him who made the space-time storm violent. What is he trying to do? The experts at the scene were staring with anger as they questioned him. Then, there was unprecedented madness in Jian Wushuang's eyes. His face grew red and his burst of malicious laughter suddenly filled the air. Haha! You finally knew to be anxious? Knew to be worried? All of you seemed pretty aggressive earlier. Jian Wushuang, what did you do? Colored Glaze Great Emperor roared. What did I do? Colored Glaze Great Emperor still can't tell? Actually, it's nothing. It's very simple. I merely manipulated the formation around the ancient battlefield so that the formation could shake off the space-time storm. But the space-time storm is so powerful that it is inevitable that there is going to be power that overspills. Jian Wushuang chuckled and spoke casually as though it was just a petty matter. However, many experts who studied formation at the scene stared as they heard Jian Wushuang's reply. No, no! The Emperor God who noticed the formation roared. This formation was merged with the space-time storm using an immeasurable method. The grand formation has become one with the space-time storm. How could they be separated? Once they are separated, the grand formation will collapse instantly. Then the space-time storm will lose its balance and stir up a great commotion that will destroy the universe, destroying everything within the space-time storm. The ancient battlefield has no space to struggle, but will instantly be squashed into dust by the space-time storm. All opportunities and treasures on this ancient battlefield, even all of us will vanish in an instant. Stop it, Sword Emperor. Hurry up and stop it. Stop. Stop it. The Emperor God started shouting at him. The others quickly responded as well. Jian Wushuang, stop. Stop it. Sword Emperor, don't act on impulse. We can discuss this. Jian Wushuang, what are you trying to do? Don't forget that Green Fire World is on this ancient battlefield too. Many started bellowing in anger while there were angry gazes on Jian Wushuang as well. In their anger, there was a faint tinge of fear. The power of the space-time storm was too terrifying. Why? Do you know how to be afraid now? Jian Wushuang sneered, but the space-time storm didn't stop and became even more violent. The extermination aura from the void above and the surrounding became more intense. There were many experts at the scene who were shivering with fear because of the extermination aura. Jian Wushuang's malicious laughter continued to reverberate. Actually, I didn't want to use this trump card. But it's a pity that you all are such bullies. You really think I am just a softie from Green Fire World? That everyone could pressure me as they wish? So what if you are Sanctuary Alliance? So what if there are unique tribes? Even if the entire eternal chaotic world's forces and great emperors gather here, so what? Green Fire World is my hometown. Whoever dares to lay a finger on it, I will kill him. You want the countless cultivators in Green Fire World to relocate and leave Green Fire World. I, Jian Wushuang, am the first to disagree. The billions of cultivators in Green Fire World absolutely wouldn't agree as well. The ancestral experts from Green Fire World that died would be even more against that idea. We of Green Fire World would rather become ashes with the ancient battlefield. We strive to fight a life and death battle. Until the very last person dies, until the very last drop of blood is shed. We will never give in. Come on. If you have guts, come on in. His voice was like thunder, reverberated in the universe. Behind Jian Wushuang, in Green Fire World, large number of cultivators stood together as Jian Wushuang's hysterical laughter resounded in their ears. At that very moment, they clenched their hands together as hopelessness filled their eyes. They were roaring from the bottom of their hearts. They were born in Green Fire World. It was where their roots were. Countless ancestral experts saved Green Fire World for them. Forget about the further history merely tens of thousands years ago. When the troops of Jin Kingdom came, Green Fire World relied on themselves. Countless cultivators had advanced wave by wave and sacrificed countless experts. In the end, under Jian Wushuang's lead, they had won and survived. Then, Green Fire World's potential was gradually unearthed and growing to prosperity. There were experts in Green Fire World who had put in painstaking effort, especially their leader, Jian Wushuang. Then, the so-called experts from Eternal Chaotic World wanted to take away their hometown and chase them to other territories. To make them leave their homes? They swore to not yield. Fight! 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 All of us are willing to following Wushuang City Master to fight a life and death battle. Until the very last person. Until the very last drop of blood. We will never give in. At worst, we will all meet death together. There were angry roars with unprecedented determination and will that resounded across the sky. Although the countless cultivators in Green Fire World were nothing before the experts from Eternal Chaotic World, they were willing to fight to the death. There was soaring war and tension that shook heaven and earth. At the far front of Green Fire World, countless experts from Eternal Chaotic World gathered there. That very moment, the experts exchanged a look and became quiet. They could feel Green Fire World's war intention and their determination. Most importantly, it was their determination. their determination to live or die alongside Green Fire World. It was obvious that Green Fire World wanted to fight till the end of the world with them. The crucial thing was that they had the capital to meet death together. Once the space-time storm power exploded, everything would vanish into thin air. Maybe the few great emperors who were powerful could survive in the space-time storm with their fierce power, but no doubt, the others would all die. The ancient battlefield would vanish into thin air too. What should we do? Abysmal Saint Master, Colored Glaze Great Emperor Zisu, Yen Zun and the other great emperors from the other three-peak unique tribe gathered. Although the great emperors were powerful, they felt helpless then. They were helpless towards the space-time storm. Damn it! I wonder who was the one who set up such a terrifying grand formation in the void surrounding this ancient battlefield. Most importantly, the grand formation is in the hands of Green Fire World, Abysmal Saint Master said in a low voice. Then, space-time storm had yet to stop and it grew stronger. There was no one who didn't feel fearful of the space-time storm. With the threat of space-time storm and Green Fire World, who viewed death as an option, many of them were thinking of retreating. However, they were unwilling to just leave like that. Just as the experts were caught in a fix, in the nearby void, a figure in gray robe walked over slowly. With white hair and white eyes, his skin was as terrifyingly fair. He was a man, but he had a beautiful appearance that put all ladies in Eternal Chaotic World to shame. Once he had appeared, everyone at the scene quietened down. Countless gazes turned to him. Emperor Bai! That's great. Mr. Emperor Bai came personally. The strongest one, Emperor Bai? Countless experts at the scene were surprised. Jian Wushuang looked at the incomer too. He's finally here? Jian Wushuang muttered. He sent a message to Emperor Bai long ago, but Emperor Bai didn't reply. Just then, when both parties were in a stalemate, Mr. Emperor Bai finally appeared. Jian Wushuang had a good opinion of him. However, his good opinion aside, Green Fire World had such great potential and Emperor Bai was widely acknowledged as the leader, the strongest one. Jian Wushuang couldn't be certain on which side Emperor Bai would take. Emperor Bai appeared and first looked the pearl in Jian Wushuang's hand. Through the pearl, he saw the changes in the surrounding ancient battlefield and his face grew solemn. Jian Wushuang, slow down the formation first, Emperor Bai said. Then, everyone looked at Jian Wushuang. The great formation was still spinning and the extermination aura grew stronger over time. It was just like a knife above everyone's head. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and looked at Emperor Bai solemnly. He moved his willpower and the grand formation stopped. The void surrounding the ancient battlefield, including the space-time storm, gradually slowed down. As the extermination aura from the surrounding void slowly dispersed, the experts at the scene gradually let out a breath of relief. Emperor Bai looked around and said in a great voice, I already know what happened. If both parties continue to fight, it is definitely a fight with a risk of mutual destruction. I believe that there shouldn't be anyone who wished to see such a situation. So, why don't we both sit down and discuss this? Then, Emperor Bai glanced at Sanctuary Alliance and great emperors from the three special tribe. The great emperors in Sanctuary Alliance naturally didn't dare to go against Emperor Bai's order. As for the great emperors from the three special tribe, they nodded faintly too. They also knew that it wasn't the way to continue in a stalemate situation. Jian Wushuang, how about you? Emperor Bai looked at Jian Wushuang. Sure. Jian Wushuang nodded. If it wasn't necessary, he, of course, wouldn't wish to really use the killer move to meet death together with the experts from Eternal Chaotic World. That's great. Emperor Bai waved. There was a lofty palace that appeared from nowhere. There were layers of prohibition over the palace. Come on in. Emperor Bai's voice reverberated while he entered the palace first. Sanctuary Alliance and the great emperors from the three special tribes entered the palace one after another. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate and entered the palace as well. In the lofty hall, there were thrones towering. At the bottom half of the palace, there were dozens of thrones. The ruler of the bigger forces in Eternal Chaotic World sat there, including Emperor God Tianling from Soaring Heaven King Palace, number 1 Divine King from Divine King Island. The peak Emperor gods were gathered there. Of course, these emperor gods, including Emperor God Tian Ling himself, were sure that they were only audience in the hall but had no right to speak. Those who had the right to speak were the great emperors who were seated on the upper half of the hall. The room. There were shadows that substantiated one after another. Besides the great emperors who came from outside of Greenfire World, those who didn't come personally, their consciousness incarnation were there. The 15 great emperors on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list were there. The great emperors from special tribes were all there too. The most eye-catching thing was that the great emperors were all seated on the left side of the hall. On the right side of the hall, it obviously belonged to another camp. The camp was naturally led by Jian Wushuang. Next to him, there was Lord Spirit Sound, King Luo Yu and Jian Yi. Compared to the other camp, Jian Wushuang was really much weaker. However, with the existence of Spacetime Storm, Jian Wushuang had great power too. As for Emperor Bai, he was seated in between both parties. "Let's begin," Emperor Bai said softly, then he became silent. He even closed his eyes faintly. He obviously didn't intend to be biased. He had been aloof to begin with. He was always high and above. Although he was widely acknowledged as the strongest in Sanctuary Alliance, he was almost never involved in any matter in Sanctuary Alliance. An elder in a simple gray robe stood up. The gray-robed elder first bowed politely at Emperor Bai, then at other great emperors. Then, he looked at Jian Wushuang and said, "Sword Emperor, I am Tian Chun, Ancestor Tian Chen." Jian Wushuang greeted politely too. Ancestor Tian Chun was in 4th place on Heaven and Earth Supreme ranking list, which was right behind Abysmal Saint Master. Most of the matters in Sanctuary Alliance for all these years were taken care of by Ancestor Tian Chen and East Royal Emperor. Besides, Jian Wushuang also knew that Ancestor Tian Chun was a great emperor who had a good opinion of him and anticipated for him to grow stronger when he had risen abruptly back then. Hence, Jian Wushuang revered Ancestor Tian Chen. "I believe Sword Emperor knows that I have always had high hopes for your growth. I am certain that Sword Emperor will definitely be one of the greatest fighting powers in Sanctuary Alliance in the future. The truth is as such too." Ancestor Tian Chun first gave him compliments, then he said, "However, Greenfire World is unusual. Its value and potential is too great. For Sanctuary Alliance, it would be of great help. Sword Emperor, you are also a member of Sanctuary Alliance. So, I wish Sword Emperor, you could consider on Sanctuary Alliance's behalf. Sanctuary Alliance would definitely remember your contribution." Jian Wushuang grew in distress. "Ancestor Tian Chun, I am really a member of Sanctuary Alliance, but Sanctuary Alliance is an alliance that is free without restriction. Your goal is to fight against the 2 dark forces and those underlying dangers. What I could do is to help when Sanctuary Alliance is in trouble. To put it in an indecent way, Sanctuary Alliance is nothing much to me. However, Greenfire World is different. It is my root. You want me to abandon my hometown for Sanctuary Alliance? That'd be a joke. Even if I agreed, 1 billion cultivators in Greenfire World wouldn't." Jian Wushuang looked determined and his voice was extremely cold too. "Sword Emperor, is there really no space for negotiation?" Ancestor Tian Chen frowned. "Of course there is. Otherwise, I wouldn't sit here and talk to you," Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. "However, to get the space from me, you have to show your sincerity. You want the countless cultivators in Greenfire World to relocate and hand over Greenfire World? That's impossible. Don't even think about it." "I wonder what Sword Emperor would like?" Ancestor Tian Chen said. "Very simple. I'd let the value of Greenfire World to be put to play in Sanctuary Alliance, but I have a few conditions," Jian Wushuang said. "What conditions?" Ancestor Tian Chen and the experts looked at Jian Wushuang with full anticipation. "The first condition is that Almighties to real gods in Eternal Chaotic World absolutely can't step foot in Greenfire World," Jian Wushuang said directly. However, just as his condition was brought up, "Impossible!" There was a great emperor that slammed the table and stood up from Sanctuary Alliance's side, while there were many glares from the experts too. "Jian Wushuang, you want Sanctuary Alliance to show sincerity and that is your attitude?" Ancestor Tian Chun stared at Jian Wushuang as his face grew grave. "Almighties to real gods couldn't enter Greenfire World. In other words, only cultivators of universe gods level and below could enter. What was the difference from that to no one being able to enter? That was Jian Wushuang's sincerity? Don't be in a hurry. Listen to me. Jian Wushuang looked around with a cold look. Although the experts were raging with anger, they suppressed their anger to listen to Jian Wushuang's explanation. Actually, all of you misunderstood Green Fire World's value. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. All of you thought Green Fire World's value was its unprecedented cultivation environment that was filled with intense spiritual influence of heaven and earth. You wanted to make Green Fire World into a sanctuary that surpassed Thunderbolt Island. But it actually wasted all Green Fire World's resources. Wasted its resources? The experts looked at Jian Wushuang. That's right. The cultivation environment in Green Fire World now is far beyond Eternal Chaotic World. However, the easiest thing to create in such a cultivation environment isn't peak expert but genius. Jian Wushuang lowered his voice. The more outstanding a place is, the higher the probability of giving birth to a genius. Just like the ancient times. During ancient times, the geniuses were as many as the clouds. It was far beyond our era. If we really want to compare, our batch of geniuses would at most be second grade if put in ancient times. We couldn't even be considered as first-grade geniuses. I believe everyone should know this clearly. Hearing what Jian Wushuang said, the experts at the scene became quiet. The ancient times, the most prosperous first era, and the era that they were in, there were vast differences. Not only in terms of experts, but also in talent. There were countless geniuses in ancient times. Any one of them in the current era would be known as a miracle. Sword Emperor. What are you trying to say? Ancestor Tianchen creased his eyebrows and asked. Very simple. If Green Fire World were to be made as a cultivation sanctuary better than Thunderbolt, it would only benefit the higher experts in Eternal Chaotic World. Although it would help to increase the fighting power of the top experts tremendously, it wouldn't make any changes to the roots. If Green Fire World's value were to be put on the younger geniuses, it would be entirely different. Jian Wushuang's voice was loud and clear. I suggested the condition to not let any experts above real god level enter because I wanted to turn Green Fire World into the #1 genius sanctuary in Eternal Chaotic World. A genius cradle. I'd give out a huge territory in Green Fire World. Sanctuary Alliance, special tribes, and all forces in Eternal Chaotic World could send a batch of disciples to the territory. Then, as long as they never break through and become real gods, they can reside there. They can even reproduce there. Although there wouldn't be much of a visible effect in the short term, through generations of reproduction and inheritance, the later disciples would be more and more talented, more and more outstanding. There might even be people who possess a unique constitution in the future generation. Unique constitution? There were many who were surprised. That's right. As long as the cultivation condition is outstanding, some babies that have just been born will possess unique constitution, just like my father. He has the body of a sword spirit, which is rare. One of my brothers is a celestial elixir. This happened before Green Fire World transformed entirely. As the cultivation environment becomes more outstanding, the unique constitution born in Green Fire World is growing in number. Now, from what I know, among the cultivators in Green Fire World, there are more than 30 of them who have unique constitutions. There are many that have yet to be discovered, Jian Wushuang said. Many experts were dumbfounded. Unique constitution was what countless cultivators dreamed of in Eternal Chaotic World. Having a unique constitution was equal to having the requirement to be a peak expert. Then, one was only required to work hard and obtain opportunities. For instance, the body of a sword spirit was born an expert in sword principle. If a celestial elixir reincarnated, he would only need sufficient resources to nurture. He was destined to become the top elixir maker. He could even become an elixir almighty. These were all unique constitutions that people were envious of. However, such constitutions were too rare in Eternal Chaotic World. Among the geniuses and experts in the 10 cultivation sanctuaries, the number of cultivators with unique constitutions could be counted on one's fingers. But then, in Green Fire World itself, there were more than 30 of them who possessed unique constitutions in Green Fire World. just how unbelievable it was. The expert's eyes became green with envy. It was just as how Jian Wushuang had described, Greenfire World could totally become a genius cradle. If it was put to use appropriately, it could totally generate large number of top geniuses continuously. It could even be comparable to the First Era, or even the ancient times. If these geniuses grew stronger, even if among dozens of them or even hundreds of them, there was only one who really grew strong for real, Greenfire World could still continuously produce more experts in Eternal Chaotic World. It was of a much greater use in making a cultivation sanctuary. Sword Emperor, even if what you said is true, you do not allow any almighties or even a real god to enter Greenfire World. Only cultivators below universe god level are allowed to enter. When they enter Greenfire World, wouldn't they be under your control? By then, you can still do whatever you wish. From what I know, Greenfire World already has many real gods. If the cultivators from Sanctuary Alliance didn't even have any real gods in Greenfire World, wouldn't the cultivators from Greenfire World bully our men as they wish? Yen Zun suddenly said. No one needs to worry about this. I can guarantee that no cultivators from Greenfire World will step foot in the territory that your cultivators are having, nor will they get involved in any affair in your territory. Plus, if you are really worried, I can take another step back. I will allow you to pick 10 almighties to form an alliance of 10 to attend garrison duty all year round. However, these 10 almighties could only be Sir Gods or Emperor Gods. Jian Wushuang said. The surrounding people were in deep thought. Only 10 almighties and only Sir Gods and Emperor Gods. They naturally couldn't restrict Jian Wushuang at all. However, it wouldn't be a problem to restrict the cultivators from Greenfire World. With the 10 almighties, it shouldn't be a problem to protect those who were below universe god level. As for Jian Wushuang, he naturally had Sanctuary Alliance and experts from various forces to guard against him. He shouldn't act recklessly too. Everyone, this is my first condition. I wonder if all of you agree with it. Jian Wushuang looked around. The great emperors immediately started their discussion. After a short discussion, Ancestor Tianshan spoke again. Sword Emperor, you do know that Eternal Chaotic World is huge? Sanctuary Alliance alone has great power, let alone the special tribes. Hence, the territory required definitely isn't small. To allocate how huge a territory for Sanctuary Alliance, special tribes, and also various forces, we can talk about this later. I only want to know if everyone is willing to agree with my first condition to only send cultivators below real god level and have 10 Sir Gods or Emperor Gods form an alliance of 10 to step foot in Greenfire World. Jian Wushuang said. Yes, we can agree on this condition. Ancestor Tianshan nodded. Jian Wushuang's eyes glowed with happiness when Ancestor Tianshan agreed. The first condition was actually the most important condition. The first condition included a crucial question, which was the control rights of Greenfire World over the years. If the experts from Sanctuary Alliance and special tribes were to be allowed to step foot in Greenfire World, then even if Jian Wushuang had the grand formation, it would be difficult for him to control Greenfire World. But now, only cultivators below real god level were allowed to enter. At most, only the alliance of 10 would be there. Regardless of which Almighty's Sanctuary Alliance chose, as long as there wasn't a great emperor, Jian Wushuang would be able to suppress them. Greenfire World's actual control right still belonged to him and belonged to Greenfire Palace. The cultivators from Greenfire World were still the owner. The moment the first condition was done, Jian Wushuang's goal had been achieved. Now, he needed to figure out a way to get the biggest advantage for cultivators in Greenfire World. Sword Emperor, tell us your other conditions. Ancestor Tianshan looked at Jian Wushuang. The Sanctuary Alliance and the few special tribes actually had no alternatives. Jian Wushuang, or it should be Greenfire World's final trump card, was too scary. They didn't have the guts to corner them too much. My second condition is that, from today, all cultivators who are wandering in this ancient battlefield will not step foot in the surrounding area in Greenfire World. In other words, within the huge skull that you saw through the pearl earlier, Jian Wushuang said in a deep voice. The moment he said that, many experts' faces changed. Through the pearl, they could see that the huge skull where Greenfire World was located was the core of the ancient battlefield. On top of that, the skull was huge and shocking. It definitely contained boundless opportunities. The attraction of the skill to these experts was far beyond any other places on the ancient battlefield. There were many experts who had already made up their minds that they'd wander on the skull after they dealt with the matter with Greenfire World. However, the condition that Jian Wushuang suggested was to prohibit them from entering the territory of the skull. Everyone, I'm afraid you don't know that Greenfire World has been nurtured by this ancient battlefield for many years, over 40,000 years. Over the years, the cultivators from Greenfire World had been wandering in the surrounding ancient battlefield, and the region that they wandered was mostly around the skull. In other words, 90% of the skull was already searched through by cultivators from Greenfire World, including myself. As for the opportunity in the skull, Jian Wushuang smiled but didn't finish his sentence. The experts at the scene heard, and they were surprised again. Although they didn't truly believe in Jian Wushuang's speech, they could make their own judgment. Greenfire World had been on the battlefield for such a long time, and they definitely would search for the surrounding opportunities and treasure. It was normal that they would search through the area around the skull. Battlefield that had already been searched through. Even though they didn't find any opportunities, the value was not as high as they thought it was. Plus, everyone, please don't only think about yourself. Think about your disciples and juniors. If they intend to grow in Greenfire World, they will need a training ground. But a universe god could easily wander around the dangerous places in Greenfire World itself. There was no effect of training. They naturally only could place their hope on the ancient battlefield. Hence, the territory that the skull took up, live for your younger disciples and the cultivators in Greenfire World. What do you think? Jian Wushuang smiled faintly. He sounded reasonable, but in actual fact he knew clearly. At the territory where the skull was, there were boundless opportunities that had yet to be unearthed. However, he did so for the cultivators of Greenfire World. Of course, all forces in Eternal Chaotic World that allocated cultivators to the territory of Greenfire World definitely wouldn't reap the same advantages. The experts at the scene exchanged a look, and they seemed a little hesitant. Then, Emperor Bai, who sat in the middle, suddenly opened his white eyes. This condition is agreeable. Then he closed his eyes again. Emperor Bai spoke himself. Even though the experts hesitated, they never spoke again. They finally agreed to this condition as well. The third condition, Jian Wushuang looked at the surrounding people. I hope that the experts who wandered in the ancient battlefield would give a certain amount of doctrine gem or resources of equivalent value to Greenfire World as rewards. What? You are asking for doctrine gem? How could you? Get an inch, want a mile. Everyone's faces changed, and a few great emperors stood up in anger. Jian Wushuang, we have already comprised. Aren't you going a little overboard now? Ancestor Tianchen said in a deep voice. Overboard? Am I really overboard? Jian Wushuang scoffed. Everyone, do you think this ancient battlefield could be so stable all the time? For you to wander and search for opportunities at ease? Why don't you think about the grand formation surrounding the ancient battlefield? Without it, how would the ancient battlefield be? Everyone stunned. Without the grand formation, they naturally knew the outcome. They shivered in fear at the thought. Because the grand formation restricted the surrounding spacetime storm, and the ancient battlefield could be maintained without effect. Plus, the outstanding cultivation environment is also affected by the formation. You have to think about how many resources we Greenfire World has spent in order to maintain such an unbelievable formation. How much treasure? Do you think it's easy? Jian Wushuang humphed coldly. Many kept quiet when they heard what he said, especially those who were good with formations. The grand formation surrounding the ancient battlefield was simply unbelievable in their eyes. The stronger the formation, the greater the energy required to maintain it. The grand formation was so unbelievable. Hence, the resources required to maintain it would definitely be a sky-high number. Then, Jian Wushuang added, the grand formation was a huge burden. Previously, our cultivators from Greenfire World took turns to wander in the surrounding ancient battlefield to obtain resources and barely maintain the formation. But then, we handed over the ancient battlefield and only kept the territory where the skull was. The resources that we could get naturally diminished tremendously. At this time, if I didn't ask for resources from you, Who else could I ask?